All right, I think we're live. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. If anyone in the chat can hear me, just push 1. All right, I got a confirmation back to the Black Brain Trust. This is open chat number 55, IT mentorship. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. If you want to engage in discussion, there'll be a link in the chat for you to click on. When you click on the link, make sure you raise your hand so that one of us can acknowledge you to advance you to the panel. Make sure you update your Zoom client as well before joining the panel, because there is a new Zoom update out there in the wild. So make sure you hit the update on your Zoom client. And then we'll get started.
They gotta stop lying to the kid. It's ain't no bullshit. You know what I mean? Regurgitated crap. It's the meaning behind the sacred symbols, the goal behind the patience that makes it simple. For me to be the creator, I had to stay consistent. Knew that it would be greater later and stay persistent. When your moves about millions, you gotta run a maze. So get the hint, no disturbances when I'm running plays. Needs and wants the strongest traits of the human nature. Disconnections from it all, some say it's elevation. But fuck that, we getting rich for my peoples who was crucified, tortured, and lynched. I'm a product of kings and queens and gods and earths and slaves anonymous. Freedom or death is what we used to shout. So why we still throwing parties inside a burning house? The devil's still trying to turn us out. History repeats what you refuse to learn about. Accept your own and do for self. This life is all about health and wealth. My 12 jewels keep me focusing, yeah. I'm on my square, acknowledge God that's seen and heard every and do for self. This life is all about health and wealth. My 12 jewels keep me focusing, yeah. I'm on my square, acknowledge God that's seen and heard everywhere. I probably move to Ghana, get into politics to restore the mother. One for the ancestors, two for the rituals, the reincarnated energy from the spiritual crossroads that seems near me. My thoughts travel like string theory. Yearly, unorthodox artist when I started was like in the using metaphysics. I'm on some Dr. Delbert Blair shit, dropping heavy science. Word up, I even blew trees with Dr. Sebi, and that was around the same time I was copping heavy. that was not respected. I'm still a factor in my section, studying lessons from the essence. The wisdom is the most precious. Sajad to the ones who know the hidden face that came from the west with new wine and golden scrolls. Food for self. This life is all about health and wealth. My 12, my square, acknowledge God that's seen and heard everywhere. Accept your own and do for self. This life is all about health and wealth. My 12 jewels keep me focusing, yeah. I'm on my square, acknowledge God that's seen and heard everywhere.
All right, man. I haven't seen anybody get on to the invite, so let me just get started. I know Zero is having a live stream right now. And a lot of guys over there were wanting to have a discussion about which direction to really go into. I know Smooth, shout out to Smooth. He had some questions and some, starting off with A plus and whether or not that's the right path. I told him to start off with A plus because you jump into IT, but what's going on, right? The A plus is the foundational principles. Some people understanding what it is that really drives it, and A plus really tells you how things drive. It gives you all the basics. I know he was talking about motherboards and CPUs and memory, RAM, all the foundational basics. And so the frustration and the boredom that's coming from that is because it is the dry, that's the dry portion of the technology. And so I think what's happening here is that we want to go from 0 to 60 without completely understanding torque steer and understeering and oversteering, how the vehicle is going to perform, depending on if it's rear-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive. How do you get to that point if you don't understand the foundational principles? And so that's the problem. To understand the motherboard and the CPU and the memory is to understand all of the technology itself. You got to understand why a processor is used in one motherboard versus why it's not. Why one motherboard form factor is chosen over another. Why one set of one is not. Okay. There's a lot that goes into that, and I think what happens here is that some people just, don't necessarily care to, be that literacy for that matter. And so the frustration, I understand, man. Yeah, no problem, C-Sit, no problem. Happening here is that everybody wants to go from $0 or minimum wage up to 100,000 overnight. That doesn't happen. Those good opportunities, but not everybody does. Walk into a room and build that confidence if you don't really have an understanding of what's going on. Building computers, okay, you may have some parts that are not compatible. You plug it in physically and it plugs in, but it doesn't actually fire up. So what does it mean? Okay, you can put together a computer, you can put the lights in there and stuff. But do you understand what the voltage is between the memory, the CPU? You know, how many amps? Oh, do you understand that amps times volts will give you watts? So all of that stuff matters. You touch it with your bare hands or not. No, you got to wear gloves. So it's a lot that goes into that. If you understand those fundamentals, man, that's going to help you in the long term, because not just a computer that uses a motherboard. All electronic devices have a logic board in them, a printer, a modem, a access point, logic boards in them. So you got to understand what the revision is and things of that nature. The foundational principles matter. Foundational principles matter. Paul Blunt is program too. They code. They don't necessarily program. Necessarily mean that you're programming. That's just my take on code. We do code from time to time. Let me check to see if anybody's trying to advance. Okay, and so some people are very, yeah, it's always going to be dry because you're not actually doing anything, but you got to take in the knowledge to really understand what's going on, and that part is important. Internships and whatnot, entry level, think they know what's going on and they don't. Okay, they don't. Lenovo had a problem with their sent out some about 15 years ago, and the capacitors on them, because they were bad capacitors. And what happened was a lot of people did not understand, a lot of the technicians did not understand. The systems kept rebooting and some of them wouldn't boot up. So when I opened up the machine, and I understand, they didn't understand what I was doing. I needed to check the capacitors to make sure that at all. Before, capacitors used to explode like firecrackers. You would hear a pop. It's not a loud pop, but it's just a definite pop. But now capacitors kind of have this design where it just kind of leaks. When I inspected the capacitors and looked at them, I said, there's something wrong with the motherboards. So we started inspecting more of the when I started inspecting more of the motherboards, I started to notice a pattern that the same capacitor was failing. And so I found a way to replace those capacitors, but fortunately for us, the motherboards were under warranty, so the systems were under warranty, so we can just have them. A lot of people, that was difficult because they had never done that. Okay, I'd had brought my soldering iron and my whole entire kit. These guys never had that. They didn't have that. They didn't understand what was the point of all that. And so understanding the foundational aspect. Now I didn't have to do that, but I was able to do that, and I was able to assess what the problems were. And so, got to be able to understand what's going on at the ground level, the ability to solder and things like. Let me read the chat. Hey, peace to everyone that came into the chat already. Paul Blunt says, I was watching some YouTube vid. I seen some say lower languages are more powerful. I want to learn how to hack. Where would I start? With CEH, from a knowledge standpoint, it does have good fundamentals. Pen testing is important as well. There's actually a couple of books on Amazon you can buy. What's the name? Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, I think this is it. I typically don't buy books from Amazon because I just don't support Amazon at all. This book right here should help you get started. Sorry. And here's this as well. The Hacker Playbook number 3. Actually, let me just share my screen because I think that because it's too big to drop the link in the chat. Beneath the video. This is the Hacker Playbook 3, Practical Guide to Penetration Testing. So I'll drop the link in the description beneath the video. You should be fine with that. Oops. Yeah, the thing about cybersecurity is that everybody wants to be, and everybody thinks that cybersecurity is just about hacking things and breaking things and stuff like that. There's a lot that goes. I spend 50% of my day in meetings, around with hoodies on our heads, looking real emo and stuff like that. We don't really do that. So at least in my environment, we don't do that. Can't wear a hoodie in our environment anyways, unless the corporate gave it to you. Yeah, good hackers or good red team people do write their own code. But that's if you're dedicated to it. It's if you're dedicated to it. So give me a second. Let me go grab my phone. All right, I'm back. Yeah. C600 says, yeah, I was sad when I learned about all the meetings. Yeah, because this is a business. This is a business. This isn't, I don't know where these stereotypes come from, but a lot of people, everybody wants to be a stardom perspective. They want to be that guy and they want to be this person, but they don't understand what's going on. And so I don't like to sell people cybersecurity if they don't understand the underlying technology, right? That's why you really hear me talk about people getting into cybersecurity as a jump off, It took me years to get into cybersecurity, right? I have an undergrad in information system security, but I have a longer track record in IT, quite some time, long before I got into cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a second step in my career. My third step is going to be blockchain and cloud architecture, which is what I'm in right now. I'm a cloud security analyst. I don't like to sell people cybersecurity unless they fully understand the technology that they're going to be securing in the first place, the infrastructure that they're going to be securing in the first place. There's a lot that goes into cybersecurity. I have a person that I used to work with who had no idea, what an IDS was. This was a senior security person. Not that they were, dumb. They just did not. They were book smart, but they weren't actually. They couldn't apply the knowledge in the real world. Okay, so that happens more often than not. Everybody wants to jump into cybersecurity, but they don't really know what's going on. I don't even know how this person became a senior security person in the first place. You know, so very interesting stuff, man, that you see in the field. Not saying everybody is like that, but there's people out there who, they're 10 toes down for cybersecurity, but when you actually have to throw them into the field by themselves, they didn't do very well. They didn't do very well at all. Not understanding the business process of onboarding and offloading and, creating playbooks and stuff like that. They just did not understand all the intricate details that go into a lot of things. So that's why I don't necessarily I necessarily try to sell it. Neon Eyes, how are you doing? Good to see you. So anybody's welcome to get on the panel. I know on Zero's panel, they were trying to get on to talk about information technology at the high level of direction. I wasn't able to get on the panel over there because Zero was asleep. But that's part of this issue, right? People are very confused about where to go. I never tell anybody to directly go to college. I think that vocational schooling is better than actual college. And so vocational schooling is only like 9 to 10 months, depending on what kind of school it is. So if you go for like CET, computer electronics technology, you're gonna get the, no, you don't need to click the link, Gabe. You don't need to click the link. We're having a different discussion, bro. We're having a different discussion. What's going on, Complex?
Hey, Mike, what's up, man?
Schooling, CET, I think that that's very doable. 9 to 10 months, physical hands-on work, building out breadboards, building out circuit boards, logic boards. I think now they're deep into Raspberry Pi development now, most of these schools, from what I've seen. Anybody wants to go get, this bachelor's degree in computer science. You don't need a degree in computer science to be in IT. You can go to a vocational school or a community college. Community college and vocational schools are actually free if your household income is below 30,000. Okay, if it's below 30,000, the federal government will subsidize, your education if it's at a community college or vocational school. So you don't have to initially pay all that stuff back. You might have to pay for like your applications and stuff like that, usually about $150 or something like that, testing and stuff like that, but that's the extent of it. Earl Owen says, will you get more hands-on at vocational school? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can't cert your way into cybersecurity, Floyd L. Hope. He says, I want to jump into cybersecurity, but I don't know where to start. Which search should I start with? You don't start with search, you start with skill. Start with skill. And so what's happening is, and again, I don't like to sell people cybersecurity because I've seen how people come into the industry. I've been in the industry for a little over 5 years now. I've been in IT for over 10. And so I came in at a different period of time because cybersecurity was still new. It was still a new discussion. So I don't know what this other guy is talking about. Is there an entry level into blockchain field that you've noticed? No, it's the why I haven't noticed a entry level into blockchain, other than being a consultant. The thing about blockchain distributed ledger technology is that it's a field for maturity, right? So you already knew underpinning technology before you got into blockchain, right? Blockchain is a technology enabler. It's also a digital transformation. It's part of digital transformation. So you got to understand the underpinnings of the technology first before we get to actually having a conversation on whether or not you can implement a blockchain platform.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think blockchain, that's kind of predicated upon a sort of like a skill set that you kind of already have pre-established, and then you use that to create blockchain applications. There's kind of like, I think we're not at a time yet where we come into something where blockchain is specifically its own thing. Like at this particular stage, it's kind of a collection of what you already know, and you're applying it to the blockchain environment.
Yeah. James in the chat says, I was able to get into software engineering, but there is a ton of gaps in my knowledge. What is a progression of certs or curriculum I can make to fill in the fundamental facts? I don't. When you say software engineering, do you have a specific language that you're trying to get to, or that you're trying to master?
Yeah, when you pose those kind of questions, there's a few things we have to consider. One is what sector do you currently work in?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what sector do you currently work in? And then kind of like, what is the future role in terms of what you're doing or the venue that you're doing? What are people doing in the future in your industry? You know, and when you can start to visualize that, then you can kind of start to see your pathway.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shoot. Okay. I might need this cert. I might need that cert
But
because
mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just saying in software development, you don't really certify in anything.
Oh, well, he's talking, okay, in software, he's saying like the gaps. Okay. So, I mean, again, we may not be applying certifications in this scenario, but
that's what he's asking. That's what he's asking.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just saying, like, in order to kind of answer that question for yourself, sort of visualize where like 10 years, man, like where do you see your sector going? Where is it going now in all actuality? Like, where is it pivoting to? What are they starting to implement? And right there, that'll start to give you an indicator of the things you might need to either need to bone up on, or you may just need to learn altogether. But you gotta follow this the industry and the sector trends. That's why we cover this shit at length, and we're always talking about what to have, to cover what bases, what can take you into where, you know, what areas you can go with things. So that's just it's really just trending, man. Knowing where your sector is going, and what your sector is going to require as a result.
Yeah, because it's not uncommon that a person would master just like C# or Java. They never really cover all languages. It's impossible to cover all languages.
Right.
Impossible.
Hey, I get is Gabe talking to you, bro?
Yeah, but you know, we're not going to even entertain that.
I didn't know what that was about. Okay.
Yeah, they're not going to entertain that. Right. But because the whole purpose of this live stream was they were asking earlier about which direction to go into from an entry level standpoint. And Smooth was basically saying he's 34. He doesn't want to get into, desktop support at this age and kind of be aged out. I know people right now that are 50 in desktop support.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, I wouldn't. Because we were covering yesterday too, depending on the companies that you're working for, you might be an L1 or you might start at desktop or something like that. But depending on, what was it, Mike, the dojo system?
Mm-hmm.
You know how basically, how companies are looking to leverage skill sets a whole lot quicker. They're looking to take what somebody has and put it in a place where they can best extract the most out of it. So in a lot of like job environments now, especially in tech nowadays, man, you might be in like, be an L1 or entry level or something like that. But shit, that might only be for 6 months. And as soon as 6 months is up, they're looking to pull you and bring you up up to L2 or somewhere else. So even looking at it from just sort of like a desktop support or like entry level L1, whatever term we want to give it, a lot of companies now look to move people who have desired skill sets to move them up the ranks. Not looking to stick you, just keep you there if they know you'd be better served elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, ageism does play a role in Western society, but that's why you hear us talk about going abroad, because ageism doesn't matter over there. If you got the skill set, that's all that matters. Here, ageism is a part of politics. It's a part of politics. You see it happening right now with Bernie Sanders and Trump and Joe Biden. They're talking about how old these guys are. They're like 200 years old combined. They're using ageism as a form of discrimination. But as long as you have your stuff together, man, you can chart your own course. I talk about certifications because it's a way to describe what you know, or what, at least in theory, what you know, in which direction you're trying to go into. So if you have an A plus, right, and you're just starting out, I don't really need to have other pressing conversations about the technology. I can just have a conversation more about your personality, right, and how it, you know, whether or not you're a cultural fit, because you can do the job, but then I've seen guys who can do the job, but then they are very introverted and they want to hang in their own little space, and that's not the business when it comes to team camaraderie.
Yeah, we were talking about this yesterday with people they get into spaces, right? And they're maybe like on that first rung, that L1 or whatever, but they don't ever develop the soft skills to translate up into mid-level, you know, and higher tier levels of like employment and management, for example. Like you got to develop those soft skills.
Yeah, so that's why they, you know, the A plus actually talks about, you know, customer service and, you know, business to business operations and stuff like that. It really goes over a lot of that stuff because that's the business side of the technology.
Yeah, that's the soft skill side right there.
Yeah. Yeah, Adrian says SQL is king at my hospital IT environment, no matter the age, but I'm in Delaware. Yeah, SQL is not going away anytime soon. Databases aren't going away anytime soon. We have Michael on the panel. What's going on, Michael?
Yo.
What's going on? How y'all doing?
Oh,
Sure,
brother.
Sure.
Is this BGS's other channel?
BGS's other channel? No, man. We came from BGS's platform, man, but we're not.
Oh, okay.
BGS's other panel.
The other guy sounded like him. I was like, is that BGS? I had a homie that follows BGS sent me this, so I just hopped on. I want to hear what you guys was talking about, so I'm just listening.
No. BGS is a consigliere to us, so he is around here. He is around here.
Okay. All right, for sure.
He's a consigliere. So he's, you know, going back to what Adrian is saying, he said that you know, SQL plays a significant role. Yeah, databases aren't going anywhere anytime soon. In fact, databases are part and parcel to the you know, to the architecture. You have to have that. I don't know any company that operates without a database. So understanding the fundamentals of SQL, very, very, very much true. Yeah, this so you work, Michael on the panel. You work in auto parts company L1. We use SQL and Linux. Are you in IT or you not?
Yes, I'm in IT. Pretty much each of the stores all have their own servers running either Red Hat or Unix, and they also have for their own databases with SQL. So with L1, we have to deal with that as well. We get to work with that. Did you hear me?
Yeah, we heard.
Okay, all right, just making sure.
Yeah.
So I'm just now working on like really getting stuff set up at home, trying to like build a lab and environment and things like that.
You don't need a physical lab. You can do a lot of stuff in VM.
Yeah. I'm kind of behind because I don't have a personal laptop, so I just went and bought something that I could afford. That where I can just keep using Linux to drive with, just to keep working with it, which is just a Raspberry Pi. And I don't know. I'm keep going from there. I also have a server, but I was struggling trying to put ESXi on it.
Too powerful for that.
No, not on the Raspberry Pi, on the server.
Yeah, depending on how much memory you have allocated for it.
This has 4 cores. I believe it's 16 gigs of RAM.
Oh yeah, you should be okay. As long as
So
you're doing
one
this,
second.
yeah, as long as what you're doing isn't high level, you should be fine.
Right. Yeah, I'll be right back, fellas.
Yep, no problem. Potov Gold 40 asked a question. I need to get into IT. Where do I get started? Depending on what your background is. And see, that's the whole purpose of this live stream. What we're trying to do is get an understanding of where people stand and what it is about the technology or the industry that drives your interest, because everybody wants to go into cybersecurity. Everybody wants to be this, IT superstar, but no one really understands what it is that they're trying to get themselves into. Yeah, Maddox is right. Maddox says, if you got Windows 10 Professional, you can use Hyper-V, or if you got a spare computer, you can run Proxmox. Yeah, he's right about that. Yeah, I would say Hyper-V should be an acceptable alternative for a VM. But you can also use, how does that escape my mind right now? Oracle's VM.
You said Oracle's VM? It's actually
VirtualBox.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why it escaped my mind for a second. I think we're moving away from IT as a primary industry, right? IoT. Everybody's having IoT. Honeywell, GE. Actually, GE actually came up actually as a part of a consortium for IoT development. I forget the name of it now, but we're moving into a different environment. Your smart cities are really, let me check. We did several live streams about smart cities and stuff like that. Smart villages, we actually discussed that some time ago over in, because in places like Africa, where the population is so dense, but they can't actually get out because there's no immediate infrastructure for them to live in, right? They haven't really urbanized their environment. But you start talking about smart villages, you're talking about portable clinics that can be dropped down and deployed at any given time, that have leverages a lot of technology that these people can be that can be easily accessible by those people. Wi-Fi in these villages and whatnot. We covered a video, I think last year. I'm not sure if it was, who made it, who produced it, but they were talking about solar energy, renewable energies in Morocco, and that's the other parts of the continent as well. And that's actually a job, because a lot of these people would prefer to live in their villages.
I mean, and Mike, I mean, it's really, it's an, you, instead of taking the village and then making it a modern city, you're modernizing the village.
Right.
Yeah, it's like a different approach. So remember, what was it just last week, or earlier this week or last week, the brother with the hand washing.
Oh yeah, the guy
thing with the barrels, right?
Yeah, the Ghanaian.
So we talking about that type of stuff being implemented, right? Because that's a fixture that you could just dude, it's, what is it? A barrel and a board, a little solar powered board that was in the little thing on top. And then
Well,
it
that's
had
the fountain. Yeah, the fountain.
yeah, and then it has the little sink, and the barrel is the water res, right?
Yeah, and
Water and soap res.
Well,
Right. And that's one, it's a self-contained unit. We can just pick it up and then put it strategically in places, right? Now all these things are connected. See, so now on a map, right? On a map, we actually have this village, right? In some sort of cloud data infrastructure through something as simple as a network of hand washing little hand washing sinks that are scattered about. Let's take what we're going to cover later today, micro transport. These things are all connected. So on a map, again, so even your IoT devices can give you a geographic overlay. You can get a geographic overlay just from your IoT devices in a given area. Yeah. See, so this is how you bring like a remote village or something like into the digital age. You can put things like just IoT devices. It doesn't require that we dig a ground, dig a hole in the ground, dig a line, pipes and lines, and not necessarily.
Yeah, we were having this discussion when we got flagged about a week or so ago.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, and we were talking about opportunities on the continent, and that in that article with the Ghanaian brother, the government, one of the ministers in that or members of parliament said in that article, basically, I'm kind of paraphrasing, if we're willing to partner with anybody who has the ability to advance us, and so a solution like that that self-contained portable washer, a hand washer during a crisis like this, there are governments but there are governments that are saying, hey, we want to put in an order for 30 or 40 of these things. There's barrels everywhere. Right? So it's not costing them anything. It's actually they're going to make more money off of that. He's going to make more money off of that than what it costs to produce it, right? Over time.
Yep. Over time.
Yeah, once he makes about 100 of those, he's gonna break even, or not break even. He's gonna turn profit. So, because the cost of the barrels and the labor and stuff like that,
and the components, dude, are not. It's not expensive. It's not expensive to make that thing.
So little things like that. I think IT is one thing now, and you have to remember, IT is third wave industrialization, right? That came in the 1970s, third wave industrialization. We're talking fourth now. So we're talking about going beyond, IT, IoT, wireless technology, cyber connected systems, AI, machine learning, data science, information architecture and stuff like that has to take place. There is no way around it. Technology doesn't go backwards, it goes forward. So you gotta be able to move with the way the industry is moving. And I think sometimes people get caught up in trying to be, or not understanding that there's opportunities outside of the immediate technology that you're looking at. Autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, the infrastructure. The only reason in America this doesn't take place at a rapid scale is because the infrastructure is not there. I mean, Tesla laid out some infrastructure from Cali all the way up to Maine, but in your immediate neighborhood, there's no real place to charge it up.
Yeah, and they can't do it all.
Right. We got Mark Holt on the panel. What's going on?
Welcome.
I think he's away right now.
Okay.
Floyd L. Holt says, didn't Microsoft reveal a new IoT chip for security? Yeah, there's a lot of companies that's doing that. Basically,
Apple did it. Apple did it. They got the T2 chip on the new MacBooks. Yeah.
Yeah, Engineering Cannabis says IT is versatile, has numerous facets from cybersecurity, data analytics to networking. Engineering Cannabis is always the wise one.
Shout out.
Johnny Blaze says, I learned MS Teams. I started building forms last week. Yeah.
Dude, you know what, man, Johnny, I gotta say, Teams is crap, bro. Like I did an update like 3 days ago and it hasn't worked since. So I have to communicate with my boss through text message right now because Teams is just, I don't know, they're trying to sort it out, but it's funny you mentioned Teams.
Oh,
maybe you could help me out with it.
wait, did the live stream stop broadcasting?
No, it should be brought. No, why?
I think we got flagged.
What are you talking about?
The live stream goes up. I see.
No, it's still going.
Mark,
We're still live. We're live.
Mark, are you trying to talk?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Hey, I have some experience in desktop support as a campus tech, and I'm actually interested in going in another direction. And the thing that brought to my attention was to get an idea. I've dabbled a little things over the years.
Okay. Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
You were borging a little bit, bro. Can you repeat that, please?
Okay. I have some experience on the desktop support end of it because I've been a campus tech for some schools or what have you. So I've done a lot of troubleshooting over the years or what have you. But I'm also interested in another, avenue as it relates to technology.
Okay. What avenue?
Well, I was looking at the cybersecurity end of it.
Okay.
Okay, that's Mike's lane.
Your mic is breaking up a lot. I'm not sure if it's just.
Yeah, I was gonna say, brother, you're borging bad, bro.
Okay, let's try this once more. Can you hear me better now?
We can hear you.
Okay, now here's what I'm saying. I do have some experience on the desktop end of it as it relates to support. However, I don't have any certifications. And I've been doing this for some years, and I've dabbled in, different areas of technology. I'm interested in the cybersecurity end of it. I just want to know what is it to get into it actually. Somebody sent me something as it relates to the Security Plus study guide and some other things. And I was just trying to get an idea of how do you get into that.
Yeah. So the Security Plus certification, you don't necessarily need it, but it is a starting point. If you read the book, especially the Pearson book, it's actually pretty good foundation for understanding security operations and security as a whole. And so if you want to get into that, you definitely got to look for entry-level roles in cybersecurity, like SOC analysts and stuff like that. Most people, I shouldn't say most people, some people that I do know got into security through auditing, IT auditing. So IT auditing is one of the more liberal fields for information security. It's a very important role because somebody has to do the auditing.
Correct.
But that's one way to get in. SOC analyst is the other way to get in. You get your Security Plus. Most organizations will require you to have some kind of certification in order to get in.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, there's some pretty good. Yeah, there's some pretty good recruitment firms that you can go to, and they definitely always got contracts that come across their table. I always recommend,
You broke up.
No, I always recommend people, actually, let me step away for a second. I got to make a phone call.
Okay.
Hey, you guys there?
I'm still here.
Okay, Mike. Did Mike say he had to step away for a sec?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
See,
All right. This your
I'm back now. I'm back.
your first time first time joining the panel, both you guys?
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay,
Mine
welcome,
too.
man. Welcome. Yeah.
And I got turned on to it through COVID. I just happened to be sitting around one day and looking at my YouTube, feeds or what have you.
Yeah.
And now I'm working from home now. I'm a school teacher, and now I'm having to convert everything to a digital format.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say, well, since I'm at home now and I'm not moving around, I have the time to sit down and actually look into some things I would be interested in. And I can sit down, have the discipline to sit down and form an attack plan and stick with it. I was just trying to figure out the direction to go.
Right. Oh, okay. And you said this just kind of popped up in your feed?
Yeah, I may have, you know what? You mentioned somebody's name, IGBS or something like that. He may have mentioned something like that. I may have
BGS.
probably.
Yeah. Somebody else had asked about.
Yeah, I pulled him up one. I listened to him from time to time, and I think he may have mentioned something like that. So what I think what I did was I went on and did a search of you all and subscribed to it. And then one day I just happened to be sitting down and doing a little work, and you all popped up.
Okay.
And so I said, well, let me start following a little bit more.
Yeah, always kind of interested how particularly how the YouTube algorithm is kind of triggering our content. Yeah, what we find is just kind of due to how things are tagged, like in the description, for example, we have the articles linked in a lot of the dockets and everything. So we find that a lot of our stuff pops kind of up in sort of like a news algorithm.
Okay.
Right. It doesn't really pop up in some of the other, like if you type in red pill or some shit, right? Or like, like typical manosphere type terminology. Yeah, it doesn't really pull us up too much. But if you type in like Black people, COVID-19, social issues, if you know what I mean, if you kind of trigger those terms tend to trigger our content. And so I was just curious when you said that. I was like, I wonder how you came across this. But no, I appreciate you for subbing and contributing, man, because that's really what we encourage is for folks to intelligently contribute, man, to what's going on here.
Hey man, I'm really thankful for you guys because you all really are illuminating the pathway for quite a few people if they just sit down and pay attention to what's happening.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, man, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
All right.
Hey, Mark, feel free to stick around, bro. I guess we're just waiting for Mike to get back.
No, I'm back. Okay. Can y'all hear me?
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, I said it earlier. I don't think y'all heard me.
No. The other mic.
Oh. Yeah. Okay.
Complex, how you doing?
Good.
Cool.
What's going on, Complex?
What's going on?
Guys, what's going on?
What up?
Man, it's just checking you guys out, man. What's going on? What's the nature of the conversation? I saw it on my feed, so I just got in the house, so I just want to jump on this to see what's happening.
Yeah, we're going just kind of a IT career chat.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah. Just kind of chopping it up about career paths in IT and just fielding questions, man. We got a couple of brothers that have joined the panel for the first time. We got Mark and Michael here. So we just chopping it up, man. Glad you can join, Nagone, because you could definitely put it on this too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, there was a lot of questions about entry level, getting into IT, and I thought we had that discussion yesterday, but some of those guys weren't. Some of those people weren't on the panel, and so they weren't there for the live stream itself. And so this morning when I got up, I heard them talking about it on Zero's live stream, and they were basically saying, whether or not A+ is the way to go, or which part of entry level is the way to go. You don't have to necessarily. What I was just basically saying is you don't have to necessarily narrow yourself down to just being a help desk person or a desktop person. we're in the fourth industrialization, not third industrialization. So IT is a part of third industrialization, not so much about fourth industrialization. And the reason why I'm saying this is that there's other areas of technology that you can get into that doesn't necessarily have to be just information technology from a business standpoint. I talked to some brothers here last year who were going to the continent, and they were working on civil infrastructure projects over on the continent from a technology perspective, laying down copper and fiber lines and stuff like that. Big contracts on the table, $500 million, quarter of $1 billion, $250,000, I should say, that are on the table. But there wasn't enough people to actually partake in that. They didn't have enough human capital and stuff like that. So that becomes a problem. And so there's areas that you can get into that doesn't necessarily have to be help desk and desktop support if that's not what you want to do. But I tell people to get started with A+ because you understand the foundational principles behind the information technology itself. Like I said before, I was saying this earlier before you came on, for some of you guys came on, that had a senior security person who did not understand intrusion detection. Didn't understand it. He didn't understand why the system was alerting the way that it was. I said it's an IDS. It's supposed to do that. It's a detection system. It detects every time a foreign IP tries to connect. That's the whole purpose of it. He didn't understand it. Couldn't understand it at all. So it's things like that happen and can actually cost you your job, because if you say that one too many times, you don't really understand what's going on, and that's your job, is to understand what's going on. You could find yourself being blacklisted from that company, or at least from that group. We don't
That's pretty
really need people.
accurate.
Yeah, we don't really need people who are in a role but don't understand what's going on. You're supposed to come up with an answer for yourself. I understood what was going on. I actually set the system up. I want to see what foreign IPs are trying to connect. I want to see how many attempts are trying to be made by these IPs and stuff like that, these domains. I want to see all that stuff. I want to see all the alerts coming in so I can keep a tab on what's going on. And so he didn't understand that.
Yeah, no, that's really good, Mike. And I think that definitely does explain a lot. I think to a lot of guys who are talking about entry level, because I have these conversations with people on occasion as well. Getting a good foundation in IT where you can get an overall general look. I do think certainly coming in, and kind of network support, help desk, that kind of level starts to give you a pretty good foundation and an overall idea. A lot of people grow from there, but there is not one specific way to come in a lot of different ways, and that's I think that's the key. So I don't want anyone to get stuck on one simple idea. There's some people who can come in, literally become very good. Let's say at Linux, and you learned a lot about that, and then you got a Linux box to play with, and you're out there, kind of getting your hands on it. You can get an entry level, position there. I mean, you can come in a lot of different ways. So I don't want anyone to necessarily get locked in to think there's only one way to come in, but the help desk, support, that tends to be a very good way to come in, and we suggest that's a good way to come in, because you do get a better overall view. But there's just not one simple way to come in. Getting the A+ certification and all. That's not the only certification that you can get to come in at an entry level, but it certainly is very good to have that. So we're just talking about what we think is good, that can definitely, kind of get you maybe on a track a little bit quicker, because getting in is, it's that's going to be a task enough. It's not like you're just going to walk in. You got to get some experience in a few places. Volunteer in a few outfits, and see kind of how your skills kind of move along, and then you can get into a company and so forth like that. There are ways to play that, or internships and so forth. So there are ways to get in. But once you get in, those are pathways that can certainly, those are paths that can take you up there, and it's all time dependent. You're not going to move and become top admin or some top developer or so forth in a year or two. That's just not how that works. So, even a top networking person, if you want to get to the CCIE position or something like that, it's going to take, a decade or more. So, I want to make sure that we set expectations correctly here, because we don't want people thinking this is a 1-2 thing, if so presto, bang, zoom, I'm in. It takes a little bit of time, but there are a few different ways that you can come in. So I just want to make sure that we don't think there's one pathway, but there's some pathways I think that can facilitate your move into IT a little bit better than others, but there's not one simple path. Hopefully we're making that clear.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's actually some very good points that you're making. And my reasoning for telling people to get certified is because it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. I think
correct.
I think what happens here is that there's a lot of unrealistic expectations about IT that some people have. Whether or not you're going to make $50,000 or $100,000, it doesn't. That's not the way how the business works. You really is legacy organizations. Let's say Bank of America, very legacy-like organization. You have PayPal as well. PayPal is a fintech. Bank of America is a traditional bank. The politics that goes on in Bank of America may not necessarily translate into PayPal. And so the expectation is, over at PayPal, you may make more money over there coming into entry level than, let's say, at Bank of America, where you got to know somebody in order to get up in there. And so that's some of the issues that you do run into. And so salary can be dependent. It can be dependent upon who you know versus what you know. Now, I saw certain people get in, to certain IT jobs because they knew somebody on the inside. Somebody trained them on the outside on how to do some of the work on the inside. And then when they applied for the job, they knew exactly what to do. But in reality, they would not have gotten that job had they not known that person. So that stuff happens, and they can command a higher price or a higher wage or whatever it is.
Critical point, Mike. Critical point. That's critical.
Yeah, that happens.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that happens, and you try to apply, the person trying to apply from the outside who doesn't know anybody on the inside usually has a struggle getting in, and so this is where IT recruiting becomes key. Contract work is normal. It's normal to have a 6-month contract. It's normal to have a 1-year contract. If you're young and you're childless, that's the perfect game. It's a perfect game. You can job hop. You got to develop a good rapport with your recruiter. If you did well in that last contract, he's going to say, you know what, this contract's coming to an end. I got another role that's coming in. Let me know what you think. I'm gonna send it your way. Boom. Okay, you like it? Okay, I'm gonna submit you real quick. And it's it's April right now. It's April 26th right now. Your contract ends 5/3. The next role is gonna start 5/7, 5/8, or something like that. We're gonna try to get you in there real quick. Boom, you're done.
Mike, that was my trajectory.
I just want to say this. Exactly, and I just want to say this. What Mike just said. What Mike just said, critical. Man, I could have said it better. But one of the things I wanted to add on, because Mike is dead on the money on that, and he's hitting it right out the park. But this is a thing too that you might want to think about. I'm sure even maybe Complex might even be able to follow up on as well. If you get a contract, let's say you do get a contract. A lot of these contracts are quite normal: 3, 6, 9-month periods. 90-day contracts, 3-month contracts, very, very common as well. But you know what? Let's say you do well in that position, and people like you. You're doing well, and people like you. They might think about keeping you on and bringing you into another role. That is a way in as well. Getting on a contract. That might happen. They say, well, would you consider maybe working full time and convert you from a contractor to a full-time employee? They may have a slightly different role for you on a permanent side, but that might be a method of getting you in as well. And I've seen that happen many times. So with these contracts, what Mike is saying, working with your recruiter, very important.
Yep.
But also getting on that contract and leveraging that contract inside might actually play a very role for you as well. Go ahead, Complex. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, no, perfect example, man. My experience with Bird was basically it was a series of 4 6-month contracts. So first was with a recruiter, and then exactly what Nagone just said. I was with the recruiting firm. So I was contracted through a third party. Then I contracted directly with Bird for a series of. So I did 2 6-month contracts in LA where I started with them, and then it was the next scenario that you pointed out, Nagone. It was like, hey, okay, well, we have something else that you may be interested in, and that was kind of what I ended up doing when I relocated, was to basically launch their pilot in a different city that they were using they basically use it to proof of concept new technology. So that's what we did when we launched it in the city where I ended up relocating to. I was then responsible for like the IoT testing, like logistics. It became a more involved role. And then from there, that was when the Lattice thing came in, because then I understood it from a developmental standpoint. So just what Mike and Nagone just said, dude, I'm giving you guys a personal anecdote here that's led me to what we're going to be talking about here in the next live stream.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, Mike, when you finish, bro.
And I can attest to it because I remember talking Complex about it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not uncommon that people in IT contract, for 5 or 6+ years, man. Oh man, give me a second, man.
Hey, let me go to Ernest. Ernest, you got your hand up, brother? Go ahead.
No, I'm back. Let me just finish this point real quick.
Oh, okay.
The thing is, I know people who contract nonstop. They love it, man. I met a guy 2 years ago, back in like 2018, 2017, man. He was like 55, 60 years old, still contracting, man, getting that money, man. He never stopped contracting. He loves it. He loves it. I don't know what kind of healthcare coverage he had. I think he was covered under his wife. I think his wife had covered him, man. And so for him, it was a no-brainer for him. I think his wife like a teacher or something like that, worked for the state, something like that. But
well, Blue Cross Blue Shield, if you're an employer yourself and you can hook up in the Blue Cross Blue Shield, where they have a preferential employer program where you can kind of get in on a group rate, actually, with Blue Cross, like I have, you can actually be a contractor or own your own business, and you can get coverage. You can actually, that's not going to be like Cobra where you're paying $1,800 or $1,900 a month or something else like that. You can get it for what would be fairly affordable. So
yeah. Cobra is like
contractor. He's doing well. He should be able to be able to pay.
Cobra is the right term for it because it's real reptile for what they're charging.
Oh, it's absolutely reptilian. With absolutely, with the hood and long fangs and yeah, man.
Who was trying to get in here?
Ernest, can you hear me?
Yeah, that's sir, bro. Go ahead.
Yeah, I discovered you guys about maybe a month ago. You just happened to pop up one of my YouTube pages when I logged on. I live in Huntsville. I don't know if y'all familiar with Huntsville, Alabama.
Okay. Alabama.
Yeah. A lot of defense contractors. In fact, this is defense contractor hidden gem. So
I think we talked about that area at length maybe a week or two ago about the amount of manufacturing and defense contracting that's in that area.
Yes, but also engineering, IT.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's, as far as concentration, my numbers could be off, like the third highest behind Research Triangle in Silicon Valley, as far as engineers and IT per capita. I'm sort of a late bloomer. I changed careers So I just really got my dream job at age 60.
Really? Congratulations.
Congrats.
Yeah, and I graduated around 55 in computer science.
Amazing.
Yeah. So the thing is that it's hard to get the young brothers down here to not just major, but even if you tell them you don't have to go to school, just get a certification, because down here, defense certification like a Security Plus is huge. I'm working on that right now. You can't get them, you can't get the young brothers to go this route. I mean, and down here, cost of living is cheaper. So, they started me off close to 6 figures and something I had never done before. So.
Yeah, because there's a supply and demand. There's a supply and demand. And that's what, what's the sucker leg guy? Richard Spencer talked about this a few years ago, back in 2016. He was complaining about, IT jobs, the white man isn't getting the IT jobs, and, what's going on with that. And it was like, yeah, I hear you, bro, but I'm not really caring too much about why, those guys aren't getting the roles, man, because Black people aren't getting those roles either. So we got to really understand that there's a human capital issue that we have in our community, where there's 1 million recs on the table. In October 2019, there were 900,000 IT roles unfilled. Okay, and they're saying this year it's going to be 1.1 million ones that's going to be unfilled. But due to COVID, some companies are pulling back, and we covered that article on Friday and Saturday. But I think Black people should be dominating the IT industry. We should be dominating.
Agreed.
Should be dominating this. There's no excuse for this anymore. Outside of some physical handicaps, but I think that we should be running shop, man. We should be running shop, man. It's disappointing what I see when I come into some environments and I see only one Black person there, or only another Black person in a different department. They make sure they kind of put a pepper in the sea of salt, and I think that's a big disappointment.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, we oh shit, sorry, I dropped something. Mm-hmm. We have too many other preoccupations, bro. To be quite honest with you, just a priority.
Nah, you know what
what's important.
Some complex. You're right. We have too many other priorities. I mean, you're dead right when you said it. We're thinking about too much bullshit. But I also think, that there is a larger responsibility, and I'm talking about many of us who are in this media space. Since a lot of people are being trained on the media and doing all of the kind of crap, with the media, and the media's programming people to do all kind of things. We need to be talking about this a lot more. We need to have more of our media outlets that are out here, especially anyone who calls themselves in the Black space, talking about this, and maybe putting more people on game. This brother here, he's trying to tell people what's going on. I bet you a lot of these kids are not even thinking about it, because no one's even talking to them about this kind of stuff. Yeah. They're not even being talked to about it. And then when he comes up and starts speaking to him about it, they're looking at him like he's a man from Mars. But had they been hearing this a lot earlier, maybe they would get on game a little quicker. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big part of that is getting that information out there. One thing that I see in other communities, I look in the Asian community. I've certainly looked, here in some of the ethnic communities amongst white people, Jewish and so forth, who sit back and they push certain things in their community very heavy, very early on when nobody else is talking about it. They're getting these people on game. I look at the Asians, they come here, they know you come here to this country and you start going to school, you're going into nursing, you're getting into healthcare. This is just something that they're doing. This is automatic with these people. And they have a very strong presence in the game. They start making money and they start, moving up that way. This is something that they just do. Other ethnicities, as far as African are concerned, Nigerians and others coming here, and they get into the nursing thing as well as the West Indians. Many of them do the same. But in our community, we have to talk about these things early on. We have to talk about that, and it's just not at the club. We got to talk about this at the house. You know, if you got a single mama there, you know, whatever. Hopefully, she's on top of her game where she can sit here and talk to you about what's going on in the game. Now, that's a large task to talk about, because most of them are so out to lunch it's not even funny. But those who are
reality, though. It's the reality,
that's the reality. They're out of it.
I think we have to do something else also. In addition to that, as parents, I'm not a parent. As parents, we're going to have to start forcing majors on our kids who are going to college. Because if you
definitely do that.
If you are signing a student loan, that's your financial investment in that child.
Loan, basically.
But you know what's terrible? You know what's terrible? Let me break, because I know exactly what you're saying. You know what's terrible? Because I've got kids who've gone to college, and your kids can actually, you can't call up and ask what your kids, how are they doing? What's their major? What are they doing in school? You can't do that. You actually, as a parent, even though you've been paying for them, you cannot call up that school and ask what the hell's going on with your kids, what are their grades and everything else like that. They won't give them to you. It's just their business. And it's ill like that. It's ill. It's actually ill. But they've actually set that up in the university system.
Yeah.
So you know,
that's true. That's true.
And I trust me, I've been there. But let's just say your point, exceedingly well taken. That is something that we need to do, is really put people into certain focus. Because what you're talking about is focusing people on certain kind of career paths where they're not going to waste their money in school, like getting a degree in fine arts or getting a degree in like history or something else like that. That's basically $50,000, $60,000 toilet paper. All right, you wipe your ass with that. There's no use. But if you're going into CIS, all right, if you're a bio major and you're going into nursing or pharmacy or pre-med or something else like that, damn right. If you're going in or let's say you're getting a degree in business administration, hospital administration, all right, and that's what you want to get into. These are useful, very useful degrees that are going to certainly give you a return on investment. Anything in engineering and so forth. So these things are definitely going to give you it's going to give you a turnaround. Now, mind you, these are more difficult majors, because it's very easy to get a degree in history. It's easy to get a degree in fine arts and that bullshit. So it's easy to get that. All right, little more difficult to get a degree, in chemical engineering. A little more difficult to get a degree, in nursing. I don't think nursing is that difficult, but you got to take biology and you got to take basic math and chemistry and so forth. You got to do these classes, which I know I've taken them. So, in a college chemistry class, that's 24 hours, a week. You're going to need to put into that class to get an A. 24 hours on that class alone. Physics, something like that. Same thing, 20 to 26 hours a week easily. A week easily. That's easily. And that may be short for some people. All right. I think, quite frankly, to really knock out these classes and really get them, because some of these classes are tough, you're gonna need to put more like 40 hours on some of these classes. All right. And that's a week. So you break that down, that's 6, 7, 8 hours a day. It's a lot of work. You're gonna have to, put a lot of time and effort into it. And you're dealing with kids who have incredible capacities to learn. Just not photographic memories, but kids who can calculate very quickly. So if you don't have that kind of brain, you have to put in a lot of time. And that's, so it's a discipline thing. It's not so much an intelligence thing, it's more of a discipline thing. And that's what it's going to take. So we have to get our kids to be disciplined. I that's something we're going to have to really talk about and really push a lot. Me as a parent was deeply involved in this, and this sitting down who's tutored kids and the whole deal. I look at my grandson, math whiz, brilliant kid, brilliant.
Let's go, Johnny.
But we got to put a lot of, effort into these kids. Got to put a lot of effort. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, say Johnny Blaze and then Renaissance Man.
Go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, fellas?
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, not too much, man. Hey, and I'll just kind of, I was called to talk about MS Teams with Complex for a minute, but I'm gonna jump on. I was gonna jump on the college piece, since you guys know I teach at the college level. If you want to get into your kids stuff, you have to do what's called a FERPA. You have to get that signed when your student is going to college, and you have to keep constantly renew it. Because without that, the administration, they will not talk to you unless that FERPA is signed. We had a situation where it was one of my students, he ended up getting sick, had to pull out, where his wife came up there. She wasn't on the FERPA. We couldn't tell her anything about any of his classes. So this also goes to spouses as well. So even though you're footing the bill, make sure you get that FERPA paperwork signed.
Excellent point. Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah. And for the other thing that the guy Ernest said, the majors, he is correct. I think if you're the one footing the bill, I can tell you at my university, I see most of the folks, they go for the easy majors. You know, we have a healthcare side and we have a electronic side. And most of the folks, they go for the easy healthcare majors, medical assisting, dental. You're going to see them in medical administration. That's where they go. You go down to that IT section, only a handful of people down there. Okay, so we got to
harder, man. It's harder. Math skills, bro. It's harder.
It's much harder. Oh yeah.
You got to study harder. You got to study harder. These kids want it easy. You got to study harder.
When I interview folks, when I interview folks that come through the X-ray program, I let them know, look, there's math involved in this stuff. I teach radiation physics. And they're like, what? And I was like, yeah, I don't train button pushers. You have to know how this stuff works.
Yeah.
Because from, X-ray is the easy version of all the imaging sciences, but it's the building block. And you have to expand from there. And there's math, and there's a general level of understanding walking in the door. I mean, I'm going to try to break it down for you, but you got to have if you don't understand, you at least got to be proactive in your learning. Like you got to come to tutoring. And I do tutoring every Friday. I do morning tutoring and I do afternoon tutoring. I get the same two people that show up. And these folks, one is struggling, the other one, she's getting through pretty good, but she wants to pass, and you see the folks who put in the level of dedication.
I remember my calculus class, same thing. I remember we were doing related rates and getting involved in that. And then we were doing the derivatives and understanding, the various, how would I say, your chain rule, your product rule, your sum rule, and all that, and how you did derivatives from there. And I remember I was getting confused on some of this stuff, and I took my first exam, got lit up. I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna get thrown out the frame. I had to go to a tutor. I literally had to go to an Indian girl she was an Indian chick with a big ass forehead. So I said, I'm gonna go to her because she may have a little braid here. Big ass forehead. She was really good. But at the end of the day, that's what I had to do. This is what you're gonna have to do in order to survive. I mean, damn. So it's not easy. What I'm saying it's not easy. For some people, it is going to be easy, but for others, you're gonna have to put in some work, and it's not possible to work.
Nagong.
Go
Let
ahead.
me ask you a question.
Good.
When I was going through calculus and differential equations, I didn't get it, but I worked at it. And eventually one day the light bulb just came on. Did that the same thing happen to you?
No, I didn't wait for that light bulb to came on. But by the time that light got turned on my own, I think I'd have been out of there. So I wanted to make sure that somebody was going to help screw in the bulb and help me, show me how to turn the light on a little bit, because I was having some real issues and I had some gaps. When I was coming into it, but I was smart. I knew I could pick it up, but I had some gaps, so I had to make sure my algebraic functions were good, and then you just had to kind of be able to piece some of this stuff together. And when I really started to understand derivatives, I had to understand that you had to, in order to solve these equations, you had to use these various rules. And you had to put them in, you had to know when they were being applied, especially when you're doing instantaneous rates of change and all this kind of stuff. So you had to know what rules played for what, plug them in, direct substitution, then you were able to solve the problems. But that was something that I had to learn. And after a while, when you knew the sum rule, the product rule, x to the fifth, 5x, 5x, 5x to the fourth, x to the fourth, 4x to the third. Now, you understood automatically how to do this stuff after a while without even calculating, but you had to understand how those rules work. So that was something that I had to learn, I had to pick up, but you had to study it. I had to study, because had I not studied or had I not had a tutor, I don't, with homegirl with the big head, I just would not have made it. And that's just how it was. And I was priding myself on being smart, but calculus 1 was getting me. So I had, in order for me to get a decent grade, I had to I had to go to get some help. So that's how that works. Anyway, but for kids who were going to school and who were getting involved in this, don't be afraid to get help, to do whatever, but get into these fields so you can take full advantage of it. And a lot of us are smart. You see these kids play these games and everything else like this. You see, look at these brothers, young brothers and stuff like that, out here on these computer games and stuff, killing it. That is definitely a mind that can think quickly. So you can apply that kind of thinking to mathematics and so forth and do very well. And I've seen that done. So we should stick to that. Anyway, go ahead.
I just want to go to Renaissance Man. He's got his hand up.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
What's going on, bro?
No, I just want to sort of further reinforce. There are two things. First of all, people were talking about just how many. I think it was Nagone was mentioning the various ethnic communities, how they push various things on their kids, and I can definitely reinforce that. We have a family friend who's Indian, and I mean, he spends all sorts of money on any sort of thing that he thinks will better his kids, be it tennis lessons, golf lessons. He bought his son a telescope when he was like, I want to say 6 or 7 years old. He's really, really actively involved. His daughter does recitals, as well as he's a medical doctor. So I'm assuming he's kind of pushing her to go that way. So it is something that starts in the household and just getting people exposed to those things. And then moving forward, once you get to college, one of the things that I saw, at least when I was in college, was you had a lot of people, at least that I went to college with, who were first generation college students. So they couldn't really. 2000s? Say it again.
In the 2000s, this is happening?
What, first generation college students?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, granted, like I said, I grew up in the South. So, educational attainment is not the biggest, thing there. But yeah, I had several friends that I went to school with who they were first generation college students. So I graduated in 2013. So they were millennials. But if you don't have that sort of people who have been through that process, it just makes it very difficult. So some of that can be fixed by just the school you go to. Some schools just do a better job of reaching out to those people and making sure they don't get lost in the shuffle versus a bigger school where they may have that happen. Or, just if you're someone who's in that situation, pulling that person aside who you see, maybe struggling with that,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it does happen.
Wow.
Especially for Black kids, a lot of first generation college students.
Yeah, I'm surprised at that, because I would have figured in the South, man, all them schools and marching bands and all that stuff, I would have thought that.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, no, like and I want to say in Alabama, the educational attainment level for like secondary education is like, I want to say it's like 25% of the population.
Wow.
And I mean, that's probably about the same with Georgia. A lot of those, with a lot of those states in the Southeast. I think in general at the United States level, I want to say it's around 33-34% of people go and get a 4-year degree. So
30% of adult Americans who've gone to school attain a college degree. 30%.
Yeah.
70%. That's where you are.
Yeah, and then master's degree, you're looking at like 10%. So
yeah. So it's between 8 to 12. But depending on who you talk to, but yet that's where we are. So you don't have a lot of people going to college. And when you talk about the South more in particular, the South was so far behind for so many decades, literally up until the 20th century, in the 40s and 50s, when they started building more high schools, because they wanted to keep Blacks ignorant. It wasn't strange for people to talk about if you were growing up in the South, and it wasn't strange for you to talk about depending on what age group you're in, your mother, your grandmother, your grandfather, great-grandmother, great-grandfather, who had to walk 30 miles, 10 miles to school, 15 miles to school. All these kind of things were very common because they didn't want a lot of school around and they didn't want you educated. They didn't want to put a lot of money into your education. So this was very very common. So that's why still some of that lingers in the South to this very day.
Oh yeah, and that's not even counting the people who, you have a lot of people who start but don't quite make it through. So got to take that into account.
All right, and let's go to Dr. Phoenix. Hey, what's going on, bro?
Hey, what's going on? How you brothers doing?
Dr. Phoenix, what's going on, baby?
What's going on, Nagone? Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Renaissance Man and Nagone and Johnny Blaze were saying earlier. Yeah, I used to be a tutor for. Damn, everybody wants to. Sorry about that. Yeah, so yeah, I used to be a tutor for biochemistry and physiology, and I did it for a while. I used to tutor just regular pre-meds and pharmacy students and nursing students. And I would say this much to what Johnny Blaze was saying earlier. That's typically what happens. Unfortunately, I probably would say majority of Black students do tend to gravitate towards those easier degrees. And I think a lot of that does have to do with preparation. You do need fundamentals. And again, especially if you're talking about entering into those healthcare fields, you do need a very solid foundation in biology and chemistry. I mean, it doesn't even really matter where you come in on the spectrum at. You still need those general courses, and you need a solid foundation in that. And unfortunately, most Black kids are not getting that foundation. And when they enter into the collegiate environment, typically many of them wash out, or more likely end up changing majors multiple times throughout their time in undergrad, which means that most of them do not even graduate within that 4-year period. Most graduate somewhere between 5 and 6 years. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah,
I ended up having to pay like $40 for a math tutor, man, an hour.
Dude, that's on the cheap end, dude. You know, if I wanted to tutor right now, man, I can easily charge $100 an hour. If you're a pre-med and you want to go get MCAT tutoring, brother, that shit is like 2 G's just on the low end.
Yeah, but this is back in 2005. This is back in 2005.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to do like the really high end stuff, I mean, for example, like pre-med, you want to do like MCAT stuff, brother, that stuff goes all the way up to damn near $30,000.
Wow.
Well, it gets heavy, but you have various MCAT courses that you can take.
But the courses are generally self-study, and
they are. You have classroom study, because I took one of them. So,
they're not like that anymore.
Kaplan. In fact, I took Kaplan. Stanley Kaplan.
Yeah, they're not like that anymore. Most of your baseline courses are all generally self-study, and if you wanted to do like some live one-on-one, is going to cost you a bit more for that. Now, however, I would throw this out there: if you are pre-med, if anyone doesn't know, but if you come from a disadvantaged background, you can actually apply through the AAMC for fee assistance program. And
what is that? AAMC? What does that mean?
Yeah, AAMC, the American Association of Medical Colleges. These are the folks that administer the MCAT. These are the ones that are responsible for the design and the structure of the MCAT systems. These are your guardians to medical schools.
Okay.
And they do offer. I'm sorry, say again.
No. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just throwing this out there. They do offer a fee assistance program, and it's based on financial need. And basically, because everyone's not familiar, the current cost of the MCAT is about $330, $350, something like that. And if you qualify for this program, it actually reduces it to $120. And they give you direct MCAT test prep materials directly from the AMC. So these are the folks that write the MCAT. So, and they also responsible for managing medical school applicants, and also pretty much they're the guardians to medical school. So, but just in general to what you all were saying earlier, I mean, this is a fundamental issue where folks are not, unfortunately, a lot of Black students just don't have those basic foundations, and certainly in the sciences and the math and in the 21st century, I mean, every person needs to have working knowledge of math and sciences, no matter where you fall at on that spectrum.
Well, we're going into a much more technical society. That's what a lot of people don't want to talk about. We're going into a more technical game. So this is going to be much more technocratic. That's what's going down, and folks don't want to speak on this. And that's when you start hearing about the UBI and all that, because we're going to a more technical game. We are going to have to make that transition. There are some wonderful tools that are out here right now to really get you right. I keep talking about the Khan Academy and Cheggs and some of these other places. With Cheggs, you pay a little bit of money.
Well,
Khan Academy is
Khan
free,
Academy
and you
is
can
actually
really
the official partner for the AAMC.
there you go. There you go. And you can get up on that, and you can rock with a lot of this stuff for nothing, for no money. So and plus, if you've got gaps in your math and stuff like that, you can get it. You can get it there. When I was going to college, we didn't have these tools. My God, I would have prayed to these places, literally like they were gods, because they were dropping this kind of information out there. Just didn't have it. We just didn't have these types of tools that are out here today that one could use for little to no money. Khan Academy is all about, we're putting our stuff out here. Sal Khan and Lizzie Khan and all them, who I actually chat with on occasion. All right. These people sit down and they tell you, listen, my programs are set up such that you can get an Ivy League education literally in your house without spending a dime. This is what we've got going on. Okay, donate, throw some money our way, but this is what we're doing. And that's their program. That's what they're about. So we do have the tools out here to get our minds right. We've got it out here. So we've got to push a lot of that. That's why I say we've got to really talk about a lot of this stuff. All right. I sit here and I look at some of these black areas or in the black sector. We don't talk about this enough. We just don't. We're talking about other whack shit doing whack shit, but we don't get into the stuff that is really important. That's really going to turn us around in this next 15 to 20 years. Because let me tell you something. We're not going to have a lot of time around here. All right. People are already talking about China trying to knock you out the box, everybody else moving. And here you are in a community where you think you're going to be uneducated, untechnical, and you're going to come off in the future. No, it's not going to happen. Very unrealistic. So we have to really start to prepare ourselves. There are other groups out here that are looking at that. We're not. We have to talk about this a lot more, and our media has to play more into that. This dumb shit we got going on. I'm not even just talking about the manosphere, but Black YouTube and Black media itself does not push this. We don't push this enough. And this is something that we have to push. And Black people are aspirational when it comes to education. We are aspirational. So we need to push this because we do have a nutrient medium in which this will feed on. They will accept this if this stuff is put out. That's the bottom line. Instead of putting out Fortnite and these other games that these kids become good at, they can also look at other math games and science games and stuff like that, where you can make it fun, entertaining, and really engage these kids at a young age. Not so much as teenagers. Get them at a young age, 4 or 5 years old, where they can really start to grasp onto this stuff and start to perform, and get our math skills up. We can do this quickly. We have to talk about it. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'm done.
Yeah, they do have that. I think Leapfrog and there's some other new startups that have focused on that. These tablets and stuff like that. That they do indeed do that. Dr. Phoenix, did you already go or? Yeah, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something to what Nagone is saying. I guess the fundamental question I have is that how much talking do we have to keep doing? I mean, look, I think if anything, the current situation we're in now globally.
Talk to a blue in the face. Talk to a fucking blue in the face. Talk to our faces and tongues are fucking blue. Talk to we become cyanotic. Talk to.
A lot of talking.
Yeah,
well, I think my general sentiments on the matter is that, look, I talk about this enough. So, I mean, at this point in the game, it should be very clear exactly what Black people need, where they need to be at. I mean, again, we're given the current situation that we're in. I mean, it should be very clear. There should be a damn, Black folks should be filing applications for every goddamn medical school and nursing school available. Hell, they just reduced the time limit for the MCAT. It just went from a 7.5 hour exam down to a 5.5 hour exam.
Damn, she's wide open.
And that's because of COVID-19. They just the AAMC just dropped this about a day or two ago. And I told you all, I mentioned a couple weeks ago with Mike, the NCLEX is now short. It's not a 6-hour exam, it's a 4-hour exam.
You did say that. I heard you.
So, I mean, there's no reason why Black folks shouldn't be making a beeline for these professions, because right now, they got, right now, the shortages are just massive. And even once we're beyond this current situation, the shortages are just going to be just that much more massive, because what I think is on the horizon is that you're going to see a lot of healthcare providers dying from the coronavirus, and there are.
Absolutely.
And
Hey,
Dr.
Dr.
Phoenix,
Phoenix.
are you aware? Are you aware of the I'm sorry, I apologize. Go ahead, man. You coming in? You had your hand up. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hey, Dr. Phoenix, do you think it's a little bit harder now because we're not clustered together like at church or at school to give this information out, that everybody's pretty much on their own inside their own homes because of the virus?
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that, because I think part of it is, and part of my general sentiment and even my frustration is you look at a channel like the Black Brain Trust. These brothers broadcast almost every day, and you would think all the information they give out, all the mentorship they're doing, you got Nagone, who has contracts, talks about it all the time. You got Mike and a number of other brothers who personally mentor, and even I, in the short time I've been in this space, I've come across a handful of brothers who contacted me offline, who were looking to get into medical school and stuff like that. And I even talk to them and mentor them. And I also have my own personal mentees offline as well. But I say that a channel like this should have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, hell, even millions.
True.
And certainly when they do live streams like this, when you're giving out information that, I'm not really hearing being given out in any space, for the most part. I mean, you do have a handful of brothers here and there, handful of channels that talk about these things, but just do it who consistently do it like the Black Brain Trust does. Yeah. No. And these chat rooms should be filled with hundreds, thousands of YouTube listeners. But again, if you look at the viewing habits of Black folks on social media, it is almost always driven by dumb shit.
One of the reasons may be the mobile phone time frame we're in, as opposed to the desktop laptop.
Brother, that ain't even going nowhere, man. I'm talking to you on my damn Galaxy Note 10 5G, man. Damn phone.
No, hear me out.
A mini tablet.
But hear me out. You can go anywhere you want to with this phone. So, for instance, I've sent this YouTube page out to a few of my friends, and they're always moving. And they said, I don't really have time to sit down for 3 hours and listen to this. I mean, they're in a fast food mindset. That's my point.
I'm gonna say something a lot of folks ain't gonna like. I really am. This ain't for everybody. It really isn't. The folks that get it are gonna get it. The folks that don't, they just don't. I'm not. I think at this point in the game, because I know a lot. I know Mike V and Complex and these brothers come under fire in the past few months about, does the Black Brain Trust, who are they for? Look, this is for folks who get it. This is folks who are already along in the process, folks who already have the foundation. I'm sorry to tell you, man, the time for catch up is not now. I'm just sorry to tell you that. And unfortunately, I'm not concerned with, if you can spend 2-3 hours, you can spend most of your day plugged into Instagram, but you can't take 2-3 hours out of the day to learn something, when we already know collectively, and studies have shown this, that Black students study far less than any of their counterparts, than any of their peers. Black students study about 45 minutes. Your counterparts are studying 2 to 3 hours every single day. And then you wonder why they're kicking your asses in college?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going to say this with Dr. Phoenix. Dr. Phoenix, exceedingly sharp individual, and I have ridiculous amount of respect for him. But I don't necessarily agree fully with you saying, hey, listen, it's too late for us, too late for a lot of guys. It's only for those who get it. I agree with that, but I also think that, that there are those who can start looking at this and can get stimulated. I want to I'm about stimulating some of these people to move. And I think, you know, enough people chime in, one or two will get stimulated to make moves. Now, I look at Dr. Phoenix. He's a guy who's studying consistently. He's busting his ass. He's trying to get a medical degree. This guy ain't fucking around. So he ain't with the bullshit. I'm following. This man is in the trenches right now. You know, knee deep in books and study and getting his profession together. So I know exactly where he's coming from that perspective. But I still think that we should definitely encourage a lot of our kids to get out here and study hard. We have some serious familial weaknesses. We got these single moms in the houses with a lot of these kids, and that's a problem. So
I don't
how do
think
we
that's
get
not
the
what I'm
outreach?
saying at all, Negron. That's not what I'm saying.
No. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm extending a little bit beyond that. I'm not saying that those are your points. I know where you're coming from. Man, I know where you're coming from. I still think that we need to push. I do think that we do have some community issues, and we're going to have to really still push to put a lot of that out, and we got to put some heat on these people. And I think a lot of these sisters got to put some heat on these other sisters about getting their kids educated as well, and especially their sons. We cannot be shouted down by the simps and the succolades of the community running around just looking to get a quick piece, and then they want to hold you in contempt for chastising them or critiquing them on this. We got to keep that up as well. It's a community effort. We got to push this. But
I just want to make just note that Renaissance Man, he has his hand raised.
Okay, yeah. So I just want to push that because this is a community issue. And the points that I have to say, Dr. Phoenix is right. 45 minutes, you're studying in your house, and the other kids studying 2 hours. They got you. They got you beat. And some of these kids who are studying 2 hours, smart as fuck. So how much more are they going to get you if they're putting more time in there and they're very smart? So you got to put that kind of time in, if not more. And we have to be able to motivate.
To that studying piece, I want to give you a really good scale of what real studying is. For me, to go through this whole process of applying to medical school, man, this took me over 2 years of not just studying, but like doing a whole bunch of stuff. Bro.
Your mic.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, yeah. To just keep this real short and simple, what people don't understand, if you want to take an exam like the MCAT, for example, anyone will tell you this is 3 months hardcore studying. Now, I've known people who've done it in 60 days. I've known a couple people who did it in 30. But this is literally a full-time gig. 8 to 12 hours a day, hardcore studying. You're cranking out exams. You're doing practice exams. You're doing practice questions. You're going over concepts. And even me in undergrad as a nursing student, that consumed all of my time. All of my time. Those were minimum 8 to 9 hour days, minimum. Between the courses, the clinicals, the studying, the group projects, all that stuff. An extreme amount of time. And that takes a certain level of dedication and discipline in students. And to get to that level, that's what I'm saying. What I'm really getting at is that this requires these things, these professions, these skills that people want to have, or these professions that they aspire to be in, it takes a serious level of commitment and dedication on your part. And that's just something you can't just learn.
Yeah. I wanted to jump in too. Sort of two things. First, I was going to kind of reinforce what Nagone said. Roland Martin harked on that a little bit. I'll never forget him saying, I think he said, we have 6 full-time Black media networks and they have 0 hours of news. It's constant entertainment. So I think Nagone touched on that a little bit in the beginning. I think that's a big issue with at least just what people are putting their time towards. Because I know, just if you look at studies, Black people obviously just consume media at a much higher rate than other groups. And if that's all that's being fed to them is entertainment, then you're sort of getting the outcome that that's kind of been anticipated. So
Renaissance man, I have a question for you.
yeah.
So pardon me, I'm in the car right now. I had to go run a quick errand. So is imitating art here, or is it the other way around? Right? Because even in these spaces, oftentimes some of those that we get
I can't hear you. You're borging a little bit.
you know, I'll be on Wi-Fi in like 2 minutes. And I'm gonna ask you a question.
Okay. I was gonna ask you, Dr. Phoenix, with what you were saying. If you don't mind me asking, what is your why for being a medical doctor? Because obviously, if all the studying and all the commitment you've made, you obviously have to have some underlying purpose to go through all this.
They told me I couldn't have it, and I'll never get to medical school.
Oh, really? Who told you that?
Let's just say I had an ex-girlfriend who told me I'll never get to medical school.
Oh, wow.
And that's why she's the next.
A straight sucker. She was a straight sucker, wasn't she? A straight sucker talking smack. Damn, ain't that a bitch? Well, I guess I guess she'll learn.
And you know the interesting part about that is that it didn't even, when I actually committed to the process of applying to medical school, it didn't take me long at all to get accepted.
Oh, wow. So that was not really originally on your radar. I'm assuming you went nursing undergrad?
Yeah.
Okay, so medical school was not originally on your radar then.
No, it was there, but it was only when I got into it was there. It's always been there, but the problem was that I got into undergrad, I already had all these credits and all this stuff and had all this experience. And because the VA was paying for it, it just made a lot of sense. But then when I was an undergrad, one of my professors, he was a brother. He's a boomer. I think he's in his early 60s, but he was a retired Air Force pilot and family practice doc. And him and I met on one day when I was volunteering for an event. And he said, well, why not medicine? And him and I sat down and talked about a week after that. And I got on that path. And again, I didn't really commit to put an application, to get my application together and doing all that until probably a year after I had graduated. And by that time, I had done the McNair program and I had a bunch of research under my belt. And so it was a pretty quick process for me, because I already had the letters of recommendation lined up. So
medical schools definitely like people who have nursing backgrounds and that kind of thing. They like that, especially you have good and your grades are good and all that, and you're familiar with, you have a familiarity with the business. So so they like that. They actually do. So that's a great move, man. It's a smart move for you. Very smart.
Yeah, no, like I said, to what I named before, I was told I would never do it. I couldn't have it. And my goal was to make everybody eat humble pie. So again.
Nah, you wanted them to eat something else.
Well, I'll say this much. For the young lady that said that to me, I hope she enjoys a time with the guy that's trying to get to medical school, because it's one thing to say I'm in medical school. It's another thing to say I'm trying to get to medical school. The average person trying to get to medical school takes minimum 2 to 3 years at least. If you're black, most black students I know take a lot longer than that.
Yeah. Good
and
show.
I knocked this out in a matter of a few months.
Good show.
Wait, can you guys hear me
okay? Barely.
Shit, really?
Yeah, I think Complex talking, he sounds like he's off in the distance somewhere.
Oh, damn it.
That's better.
Oh, okay. No, so you were speaking about entertainment, man, and you had that was a very interesting statistic Roland Martin had threw out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is, because we find that in these spaces, we even find that sentiment reflected in these spaces where people they'll tell you we prefer to be entertained over informed. Or what has to happen is that you have to infuse your your information with entertainment, so you have to make it infotainment or something rather. I mean, that's sort of like a starting block hindrance. My question to you is like, given that preference, how do you see, how can you see placing any sort of importance on things like this, subject matter like this, if we fundamentally have a preference for entertainment? I guess that's my question.
Ooh, my personal opinion is I think we have been socialized into this. I don't know about, I mean, Nagone, you may want to chime in on this. I'm sure this sentiment was not as much as prevalent in your generation growing up as it is with ours. I think we have a bunch of people who that's all they've literally had. And to be honest, I don't know if you can fix it with them, but I think you definitely have to draw a line in the sand with some generation and say, this is not going to be the only thing you're exposed to growing up. So it may be a lost cause, kind of like what Dr. Phoenix is saying for certain people.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Because if you already have if you have a predisposition, right, like almost like an aversion to information and news and understanding, how the world is actually working around you. If you have like a predisposition to kind of having an aversion to that, you're fundamentally fucked, basically.
Well, see, this is the thing. See, this is what I've seen. This is what I know. That's why I don't even. It's not a question for me. You set up the proper structure and put these kids into it, they will succeed. They will succeed. They will accede to it and they will succeed in it. They will do that. That's why, we talk about the children's zone, Harlem Children's Zone, school zone there. Okay. Thurgood Marshall High over there, small high school, everybody shoots suit and tie there and everything else like that. And you have the highest grades of any students in the country. And you don't hear about it. Now, that's not an accident. The reason why you don't hear about it, it's because they don't want you to talk about this, because you're taking control of your own game. And once you put that kid into that situation, they're going to do well. You got to put them there. See, this is what I know. This is not a question mark. You got to put him there. You put him in there. You put a suit and tie on that kid. Make sure he's got his book bag, and you say, this is exactly what's expected out of you. And I don't care, you're a single mother. I don't give a fuck how ratchet her funky ass is. She better be here at this freaking parent and teachers conference here Thursday at 3:00. And we're gonna have this every Thursday at 3. And whatever's going down, this better happen. And get her and get whatever nigga she hanging around with. Bring him in here, and you better make sure that they're here, bop, 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 bop every time. And this is what we expect. And this is what we expect from you every day and from her. Okay, then boom, you're gonna start seeing people respond.
Yeah, but like you said, those are kids. Right now, we're dealing with the generation that didn't have any of that grew up on the nonsense.
Okay, so how old are we talking about right now? Just very quickly, what are we talking about? How old are we talking about?
I'm assuming. I can't speak to specifics, but I'm assuming complex. The people you're talking about in the metasphere are what, probably in their late 20s, 30s, maybe 40s.
I guess we're talking latter stage Gen X, so like my age. Right.
They highly finished.
Right.
They highly finished. Forget them. I'm not talking about them. Fuck them. Let them burn.
Now if you're talking about the cheering, I'm talking about the cheering.
I'm talking about the cheerings. I'm talking about them old people running around, them old niggas, them old bitches. Fuck them all. Okay. I'm talking about those right now who we can specifically work with and improve. Who's got the elastic minds, who are capable of picking lots of up and making moves. That's what we're talking about. Getting to them.
Yep.
Okay, getting to them. The other ones, they finish. That's it.
Hey, I also want to get to Johnny Blaze. He's got his hand up
here. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Hey, I was going to just say, wanted to comment on something Dr. Phoenix said. You'd be surprised, man. When somebody really pisses you off, anger can be a very powerful motivator. When somebody tell you that you can't do something, and sometimes you got to harness that like fuel and use it.
You got to channel it correctly.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And I try to,
Johnny, great point, man. Beautiful.
Yeah, get that going through. But you also say, like a lot of these, the Gen Xers, the millennials, or what have you. Some of these folks, you're right. we can't fix these folks, man. I teach folks from 18 well into their mid and late 50s. And I can tell you, some of them just have that internal drive. And I think that's one thing we really haven't talked about. We get on the environment a lot and we get on the parents, but I think you also have to look at that person has to have some kind of internal drive, like that light bulb moment. When is that light bulb gonna go off? So I think that's one component. But another point I think we really haven't hit are your friends. If you don't have friends who are gonna push you, that can be a problem.
Your network is your net worth.
Yes, sir. That's oh boy, what's his name? Stephen Ballantyne. He used to say that back in yeah. You got to have a strong network of people. That was one thing. I was fortunate in my early days in the military. I was going through a lot of financial problems and some work problems. But I remember this old master sergeant. He pulled me in his office one day because me and my supervisor were having an issue, and he said, "Look, he said, at the route that you're going right now, you're going to be back home on the block doing whatever it is you're doing." He says, "Look, your supervisor, he's an idiot. However, he is still your supervisor. You need to learn how this game is played, learn these rules and these mechanisms." And when I walked out that man's office, I was a little upset, but that night I went home and I thought about what he said. And that was my light bulb moment. This man telling me, "Look, you have to learn how to deal with this situation in a constructive manner. You try to go in there and do some hood stuff, you're finished." And I did not want that life. So that was my turning point. And I think, our young men, whether they be 18, whether they 50 or, at some point they have to have that wake up moment and tell themselves, I want a better life. What am I willing to do to get it? And what am I willing to give up to get it? If that means I got to go, stop chasing the women, stop listening to hip hop music 24 hours a day, turn off the idiot box and put down, the social media, so be it.
I couldn't have said that any better. And that was essentially the point that I'm getting at. The point is what are you going to give up for that?
Yeah.
What are you willing to sacrifice to get what you want? Because you're not going to get it all. There is no such thing as having it all. You have to give up something.
Facts.
And I cannot stress enough how, anger is one of the most powerful motivators out there. There's a reason why in Star Wars they always had that saying, anger is the path to the dark side. Because it is one of the most powerful motivators there is. When someone tells you you can't do something, someone tells you you're not good enough, you'll never do it, you'll never get it. And I know a good number of brothers done heard that in their life. I know they have.
From a straight sucker.
Laid up with.
From succolades. Yeah, that shit from succolade. It's a succolade talking that bullshit.
And I'm gonna say this unequivocally, because it probably came from some damn bitch you were laid up with. Mm-hmm. And I'm
a straight sucker.
I don't normally talk like this, but I think it needs to be said because a lot of brothers done heard this in their life, and you need to turn that anger. You need to turn that into your motivation. That is what will fuel your next victory and every victory after that.
It's called the law of equivalent exchange.
Woo, you know what? I was thinking the same thing, Complex. Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah, the law of equivalent exchange.
You got to give to get.
You got to give to get. So if you use that, right? Use that energy for something to get something in exchange.
Yeah.
To your benefit.
And no, and I couldn't agree with that more. Even with you guys talking about the IT game, all of that. It is anything. This is applicable to anything you want in life. I mean, as Black men, I would imagine probably most of us have probably heard it at some point in our life. Some woman we were with, probably your derelict mother, have at one point told you, you'll never do this, you'll never be this, you'll never have it. And the worst thing you can ever do is actually believe that shit.
It's tough programming when you have a straight hoe ass sucker laid moms as a moms talking
it's
that
it's not even just the mothers, brother.
talking that vile shit to you, or
It's a lot of these.
or
It's a
you
lot
got
of
some
these
sucker
chicks
laid
that
bitch that you
brothers
rolled
really-
up with, who's talking that sucker laid shit to you as well. You see a lot of these people, and a lot of them, you know, they want to sabotage you. You have to understand that's a big part of what goes on out here. It's a lot of sabotage. A lot of these people are self-sabotaging, and they'll try to sabotage you as well. Got to understand that. That's why when this angle is properly focused, you can get highly butterlay, and that's a key thing.
Because I don't know if I really talked about this, but I'll say this right now. I'm essentially doing this by myself. So I don't have a base of support from like family or something like that. I pretty much done the vast majority of the stuff that I've been able to get in my life, I had to do on my own. So, you know, and I know this is kind of uncomfortable for a lot of Black men. You need to accept that, because most of us are gonna have to do this on our own.
Yeah.
And you need to find some brothers who understand that and who aren't making excuses for them hoes you laid up with or your damn mama.
That's right.
Your network is your net worth.
Let me chime in right quick. I think another thing that hurt us this weekend, and a lot of people maybe not be thinking about that, what this caused, was the NFL draft. And let me say why. With the COVID virus keeping us in the home, which means that the NFL draft was in every person's home around the family and celebrating being drafted. The ones we are trying to increase in number are going to see that and thinking about going the NFL route. Now, just fast forward, if this virus is still going on in July, when the NBA draft comes around, and the NBA is thinking about doing the same thing. This is the fast food I was talking about. So there's a lot of silly competition out there that we're up against, in my view.
Yeah, I was going to add too, on top of that, you're not probably going to have any graduation ceremonies. So on top of that, you're going to have no graduation ceremonies and the NFL draft. And then I was going to also speak to Johnny Blaze. I think another thing that you said that was a really good point. You mentioned that your sergeant said that you had to deal with this situation in a constructive manner, even though it was BS. That skill set seems to be missing from a lot of Black men, unfortunately. And you gotta have that in life.
Yeah, I mean, I had to learn how to, you know, take constructive criticism from this guy, but also still deal with him. And, you know, because there are mechanisms in place to deal with situations. Most times, when, you know, particularly, you know, at this point in time in my life, I was 20 years old. And here it is. I'm a, you know, young Black guy. This is what, like 1992, 93 time frame. I got a white sergeant over me, you know, and of course, I'm thinking that whole I'm Black, you white, you don't like me kind of thing. And lo and behold, come to find out, it wasn't so much that, it was just this guy, he was just not a very good leader, because he was kind of like this with everybody, whether they were Black, they were white. But me, I internalized the issue, and that was my biggest problem. And because I really realized that when we had another airman come in, a white guy, and they ran into the same exact issues, and that's when I really like, you know what? It's not a Black white thing. It's just this guy with new people.
Yeah, he was fucked up. That's what
yeah, but you know, but it took that sergeant to kind of put that thing in my head. So when our sergeant got a new boss, his boss saw him like, oh, wait a minute, and he grabbed him, threw him in the office. No, you got a problem. And that was okay. Now I can learn to look at issues for what they really are. And it's like, when, you know, when someone tells you a story and you know, you're getting secondhand information, and you can realize you're telling me this story, but there's certain pieces missing. There are little gaps in the story. And I'm like, I can't make a truly informed decision based on those gaps that are missing.
Yep.
Okay. And I think that's one of the things, I think Black men in particular, we've got to learn to see, hey, there's some gaps in these stories here. And we got to learn either A, we're going to fill them in ourselves, or we need to go demand, we need more information.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think to that point about the the ability to actually deal, like Johnny Blaze was saying, and Renaissance Man was saying, a part of that is that street culture. We think we can strong arm and alpha our way out of situations, like Zero says, and that doesn't work. That really does not work. I mean, that gets you not only fired but blacklisted from a whole industry. We saw what happened in Connecticut when that brother was dealing with racism. You know, he ended up bringing the blicky back to work and took those guys out, took himself out too. So you got to learn how to really pick your battles and choose which which ones you're going to fight for. Some of them aren't worth fighting for at all.
Or I was going to say, if you do choose to fight that battle, make sure you don't damage yourself in the process. Make sure you choose a method that will come out constructive and end up with you being on top.
Yep.
Shit, I had a question, man. I totally blanked.
No, I just want to jump back to the studying piece. I always tell people on here to study at least 90 minutes a day at the bare minimum on average, because if you're a working class adult, there's only so much time you can really put in. I spend a lot of time reading these articles before they even come on to the to the docket. So that's how they get vetted. So I spend a lot of time reading, and part of that, I also read for CPEs as well. I have to keep myself up and things like that.
And Mike, tell people they should watch informative videos as well. There's some good videos out there with some very responsible channels, which has some very responsible channels that have videos 15, 20 minutes that drop some really good information out there that that you should be getting yourself aware of as well. So it's not all.
I text Nagone shit all the time.
Yeah. He pops the little vids over to me. We talk about Mike. Mike does the same thing. We're popping on stuff, looking at economic, political, and some social stuff or whatever. And we're just looking at things as well, just keeping each other abreast of what's kind of going on outside.
But a lot of it too kind of corroborates what we're talking about, right?
Of course, it feeds right into it. But we should always be about a continuing education, and it doesn't stop. I think when education does stop, well, you know what day that is.
You already know.
You know what I'm saying? You know what day that is. So we want to consistently stay on top of that. And that's something that we try to push here at the Brain Trust, and we want to have a lot more conversations like that, and people really staying more abreast of what's going on, and really taking and that also will give you a closer look at yourself. So I'll just leave it at that anyway.
Well, that's a good point, because the reason why I posted that documentary on the community tab about AI, the coming movement in China, you have to understand how far back Black people really are. It's not just America, but Black people as a whole they're not even on the radar when it comes to this. 37% of your scientists are going to come out of China. 26% coming out of India. There's not a single.
That's over 50.
Yeah, there's not a single melanated face that's even on the listing. Not even below 1%. So you have to understand that if you can't figure this out in the next 10 years, let me give you a backstory real quick. Joseph Stalin in 1928 said that that the Soviet Union was at least 60 years behind the United States, the West. The capitalists is what they call them. And that they were going to make a move on industrialization. By 1943, they had caught up with the United States. By 1958, I think they were the first ones to put a man in space. That's the sort of level of thinking that needs to take place in the community as a whole. And I don't see people really thinking on this level, man.
Hey, let's go to Johnny Blaze. His hand is raised. Oh shit, I made a rhyme.
Hey, no, I was gonna say when it comes to this whole studying piece, I was dealing with a student last week, and unfortunately with this whole COVID thing, she was really complaining that she didn't have time to study because her kids were always home. Hey, she's got her little 5-year-old. He just won't leave her alone, to give her time to study. And I think that's one of the things I think people are going to have to really deal with is they're going to have to find some way of carving out time for them to study during this period while everyone is home, whether that go lock yourself in your car, go for a walk, books on tape, but you're going to have to go do something now. One thing we say in the Air Force, flexibility is the key to air power. So you got to be flexible in what's going on right now.
I think she should, her 5-year-old, she should sit down, put some books next to him, and have him study with her. That might be.
I think she was, yeah. I think she was trying that. She's going through that, but how 5-year-olds, a lot of energy. But if she's saying this, I know I have at least 4 or 5 other students who got kids at home as well. And I know I'm just one instructor dealing with this. I'm sure there's probably many other people throughout the entire country, if not the world, who are in this same situation right now.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you have to either get up early or stay up late after they go to bed.
Yeah, man.
You got to find it. You have to find a time to put it in. And a lot of times kids like to copy what their parents do.
You're right.
So, especially at young ages, if you're sitting there studying, say, "Come on, study with me. Get your book out." I'm doing like mommy's doing, and they'll sit down, they'll start studying, and then quiet as it's kept, you're actually indoctrinating them to study while you're sitting down with them without, kind of trying to make a little game out of it or a little fun out of it. That tends to work.
Let's go to Dr. Phoenix.
Yeah, to what you were saying a few moments ago, Mike. I mean, this is across the board. I mean, not just scientists. You look at the tech field, you look at medicine. Do people realize if you go to medical schools, if you go look at your average medical school class, at least a third of the class is Asian? Do people not realize that? You can literally count Black students on one hand in most cases.
The Asians push this. They have what they call the classic, what they call tiger moms.
Yeah,
you hear about this.
I know
I
know about Amy Chua's book and all that. But what I'm saying is that to Mike's point and a point that I've made on panels previously is that Black folks don't have a whole lot of time to get this together. You really don't.
Oh yeah. Totally agree. No, our time is, but it is doable though. It is doable.
I'm not saying it's not doable, but right now, given kind of the chicanery that I've seen going on, not really on YouTube, but just in general out in real life, it's not really inspiring. It really isn't. I don't see a people who are motivated to thrive and survive in the 21st and the 22nd and the 23rd and all the centuries on after. I see people who are crying for destruction.
No, if I retitled the live stream, Boris Cujo, I would have 1,000 people in the chat right now.
Yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah. Or light skin Black men versus dark skinned Black women or something like that. That would be shit. Let's get up in there. Let's get up in there. Yeah. That kind of crap would definitely go bad for sure. Oh boy.
No, and what I'm getting at is simply that, you're gonna have a handful of Black folks, mainly Black women. Yeah, they go get some degrees and blah 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 blah. Yeah, they go do whatever they do. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, it still doesn't matter what they do because they are typically not the principal drivers of innovation and entrepreneurship, right. despite all the so-called reports to the contrary. Mm-hmm. The principal drivers of innovation and entrepreneurship in Black society has and always will be Black men. Yeah. And what this is about, and essentially what this time period that we're living in is about, is that now is the best time more any time than ever in black history for the last 5 or 6 decades. Now it's a time for you to capitalize on all these openings. I mean, things are going to be wide open now for a little bit. It's not going to be forever, but certainly for at least the next year or two, you're looking at things being wide open. And black folks and black men can make this pivot and do what it is that they always wanted to do if you just take a little time and bet on yourself.
Yeah, you know, I bring up Joseph Stalin because he looked at everything and said, we are far behind these people. We're 60 to 100 years behind the West. What are we going to do about this? And he started immediately industrialization between 1920 and 1930.
They did.
And they started years.
And they opened up a lot more schools. They started educating kids.
Yeah.
And one of the big pushes that they moved towards was opening up more schools and getting kids in, educated. They were back there in Siberia and these other places. These kids were laying up there and in the backwoods, farming and doing whatever, and catching wood, doing wood or trying to survive, but they weren't getting educated. So he understood you had to educate. You had to educate your public, and that is, and any leader who has really understood where his people were and how to move them forward. One of the biggest things they did was really increased, building more schools and getting their kids educated and putting a lot more education to the game. That's key with us. I can say this: we put a really good school in front of some of these black kids and put them in there with good teachers. They're going to do well. That's a fact, and we know how to teach them. But that's a big issue that we have, is that we don't have a lot of that going on enterprise-wide in our communities. And a lot of us are just not talking about it and pushing it. And we got some of these dumb chicken and biscuit eating fucking savages sitting up front talking out of the side of their asses, talking bullshit, not pushing anything. And then, they want to sit back here and, and blame white supremacy and everything else like that for a lot of these problems. And they're full of crap. They're just full of shit. They're not getting down to the meat and potatoes of where this thing really, where it is. We're not putting the rubber to the road. And that's some of this is on us. We have to sit down and have to deal with it.
We have a question in the chat that I think is kind of apropos to literally what we're talking about right now. And first shout out, man. Shout out to Great Britain for stopping through. I don't think I've ever seen him through, or
he's been here.
Okay. Well, shout out, man. It's my first time seeing you in the chat, bro. I'm glad you're here, Paul. And hey, what's going on, bro? So the question is, in reference to what you guys are just talking about, can that be done? Otimo says, can that be done without an authoritarian regime? Okay, so I think this is where the technocratic angle comes in. Am I wrong on this, you guys?
A technocracy is necessary.
Okay, speak on it.
I don't think you have much of a choice in the matter. I mean, you really don't. I mean, it's just that simple.
No, because I was going to ask, do you think most, I mean, obviously the technocrats, elite, however you want to describe them, they know black people are behind, but do the rank and file black person know that he's behind and what he's up against?
I think this kind of comes back to the whole us mandatoring degrees. I mean, prime example, if you send your son or daughter to school, they get a degree in God knows whatever, you're 40, 50 grand in debt and they can't go find a job or they're working at Starbucks.
Like Ben Baker.
Yeah, I mean, this is not like some Van Wilder movie, or better yet, the movie Drumline. And I remember, the young lady in there, she wanted to be a dancer, but her parents were footing the bill, and somehow, they convinced her to do dance. She convinced them to let her do dance at the end. That was a very stupid message to send.
I can't tell you how many black students I met who went down that route.
This is Ernest. The reason why I say we're going to have to start forcing degrees, I had a friend, he was ex-military like I am. And he had a daughter who was slacking up in school 3-4 years. And he tried to warn her, but she kept slacking up. So when she got to her senior year, she wanted to go to college big time. He had a list of majors for her that he would finance. I think he had 7 or 8. of them. They were a lot of tech, some finance, some law. He said, those are the only degrees I would pay for. He said, your only out is to join the military. She ended up joining the Navy. If you are writing a check as a parent, that is your financial investment. And you're going to have to make sure you get a return on that dollar.
Yeah, definitely. I wish more rappers would invest into Black boys rather than to having more liquor lines and shit.
Well, that's because most of them can't get there and read anyway. They couldn't read their contract. That's why they got 360 deals.
Mm-hmm.
You have some of these guys out here who actually cannot read. that's the sad thing about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wish there was a different method of investment. But point that I'm making here is that you have a better chance at one of these guys inventing something if you invested into them and to turn around an investment. I mean, look at Bird scooters. No one would have ever thought in 2016 that by the end of 2017, a startup would have a $2 billion valuation just from a few people, creating a startup. I think less than 50 engineers, something like that. No one knew that WhatsApp would sell for $50 billion with 50 employees.
No one knew Airbnb would become the largest real estate company, essentially.
Yeah. Well, I think as WeWork. I think WeWork is actually the largest.
WeWork even, yeah.
Yeah.
When you look at its business model, what it's predicated on, we've seen co-op workspaces, but not nothing like a WeWork. We haven't seen anything like an Uber, largest transportation company. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of areas I think that need to be addressed in terms of like the fundamentals going forward, because they're saying by 2030, 37% of your science is going to come out of China, 26% out of India. We're not even on the radar for any of this. So I'm saying that there needs to be a push for STEM industrialization, or fourth industrialization for that matter.
And it's got to be aggressive. It's got to be aggressive as fuck at this point.
Yeah, outside of IT, like IT is a third industrial industry. Fourth industrialization goes beyond information technology. It's actually cyber connected systems. So now you're talking about IoT and blockchain and all these other areas, and people are still thinking that the bare minimum is all I'm trying to get to. And it's like, no, we got to think beyond that, man.
Dude,
look at your environment like this brother did.
Hey, fellas.
We got to look at the environment like this brother did in Ghana, the Ghanaian brother, who took that drum, put a solar pin on it in a faucet, and came up with an automated, washing, hand washer.
That's not the first time that's ever happened. You heard of William Kakwamba, right?
Who?
William Kakwamba. He's roughly around our age, like 33. When he was like,
you mean your age?
Yeah.
I'm just go ahead.
No, it's all right, man. It's all right. So back in 2003, the way I forgot the East African village he's from the country, but put it this way: public school is roughly $70 a month in terms of exchange, right? Money, currency exchange, and his family couldn't afford it. And they came from a family of farmers. So what he did was he continued to read books from the public school library, and he eventually managed to create like a windmill out of garbage scraps. And when people got when word got around of how innovative and brilliant he was, he is now an engineer. In fact, they made a Netflix movie about it. The boy who discovered the windmill, or who generated that's that guy. He actually wrote a book on it too. He wrote
okay. I know what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to give pushback on like these rappers not knowing how to read, but some of these rappers are actually more intelligent than they have you think. Some of these rappers, some of them, to some degree, a psych degree is BS, but when you're applying psychology to how people operate and what they're going to buy, these rappers actually go to school for that shit. They take classes online in the midst of touring, and they know how to keep people entertained. So it's not that they're stupid. They just know that their audiences would rather be stupid. And it was going back to what I said earlier in the chat about, I think Machiavelli's observation of the vulgar crowd unfortunately applies to a lot of Black people, especially in Black YouTube.
Let's go to our new store.
What's going on, people?
Sean,
New style, to the bang, amigo.
Hey, all right.
Hey, how's it going, fam?
all right, you sound sick, man.
Cool. This is probably right up my alley, this whole quarantine, because I get more time to read and study.
Okay.
It's a dirty word, but
No. Yeah.
I want to chime in, man, because I said this before, and I think you guys said it before too. But isn't it ironic that a lot of these rappers, when they become famous and influential and got some money, I mean, isn't it crazy that they send their kids to college?
Oh, yeah.
And then on top of that, the people that follow them speak against college. So, matter of fact, they make streams and all kinds of stuff with those rappers in the background talking about F college, F degrees, who need degrees. I'm like, but you bumping Ice Cube, but he's sending like 2 of his kids to college.
Yeah, no. Ice Cube's all about the education. He understands that.
You know, and you guys know the comedian Aries Spears.
What
He did a joke about that. It's called, you know, he made a stereotypical joke about Southern rappers. And, you know, it was everything you could think of: booties, grills, really bad Southern vernacular. Granted, I'm from the South. And at the end of the video skit, it's like, these people don't even know I graduated from Harvard.
Yeah, there's several rappers that went to HBCUs and whatnot. Ludacris has a degree in communications. Puffy went to Howard. You know,
2 Chainz went to 2 Chainz.
Yeah, Daz Effects. You know, they went to Howard.
Those dudes are like master's majors from Howard.
Yeah.
Even Lil Wayne.
But if you listen to some of these guys, not everything they say is ignorant. A lot of some of the shit to be fair, if you're talking about Ludacris or even Lil Wayne to some degree, a lot of the shit that they say in their rhymes are very clever. They're actually legit wordsmiths.
Yeah,
now these new rappers, I doubt highly. A lot of these tattoo face mumble rappers.
This mumble rap. It sounds like mental retardation. I mean, these guys sound like they're retarded.
It is.
I mean, fucking Cro-Magnon Simians up in there. What the
That's
fuck
because
is this?
it is. If you listen to these dudes talk, they talk the same way they rap.
But think about the old school hip hop. You know, a lot of those people, when they were writing rhymes, it had sort of like an English paper format.
And then some of them were part of the Nation of Gods and Earth, so you know they
knew how to write.
You know,
Well, we did a live stream, Mike. Oh shit, dude, a year ago about the sign. What was it? Code. What was the title of that?
You mean hip hop as a science?
Yeah, but the ones where we talked about lyricism as like code.
Yeah,
Remember?
I think that was the one. That was also that talk you guys did about the Montessori schools as well, I believe.
Well, no, this is separate.
No, it's separate. Yeah, there's a separate one. Go ahead, Mike.
Hip hop as a science, when we were talking about, was the bars were lines of code, and the structure was all algorithm. And you know, 16 bars in a verse, 3 verses. You know, the thing is, a lot of these people now they don't even write. You know, they just freestyle off the top of their head. So the code's all sloppy. Back then, your code had to be tight, or else it wasn't respected. You know, it would get discarded really quickly. Now you can come out with whack code.
Unless you watch battle rap, and even then, most of those guys, you gotta listen to like some of the more intelligent ones, like Lux or somebody.
I'm sorry, man.
Keep going, man.
If y'all want, I could bring Alonzo Williams from the World Class Wrecking Crew to break down that as far as lyric writing and stuff like that.
Yeah,
we can get into that.
To work that out. Yeah, we have to work that out for next month.
I'll send them your information, and y'all can be in touch. And
wait, you mean a guy that with the jerk curl and who was portrayed as being very, like, I don't know, simple-minded about music, according to Dr. Dre?
Yeah, they portrayed him in straight out of Compton. But yeah, that's my buddy, so I can
Really?
bring
Well,
him
the
through.
movie didn't really portray him in a very positive light. And then I saw
Yeah, he
part of his
talks about
interview.
that.
The movie, yeah, Vlad TV's the way Vlad TV on the interview, he was like, he was surprised that people like Cube with the way he was rapping because he knew Cube as the nice kid.
Yeah, he went to Taft High out here. Taft High is like a prep type school.
Dude, he went to like I used to live in the San Fernando Valley, Art. It's over in Woodland Hill.
Okay.
I used to coach football over there.
So you know.
I know more than we'll save that for another discussion.
Okay.
No, the point that I was making about, the bars and stuff like that, the similar to coding, the fact that those rappers were smart, Raekwon, Wu-Tang, the way they rapped and stuff like that,
Nation of Gods and Earths.
Yeah, I would even throw Jay-Z in there as well. I think he's lyrically gifted.
Another.
But if Black people apply that same line of thinking to technology, they would actually have been, far surpassed, many other ethnic groups in that regard. Because to rap like that, like Wu, like Raekwon or Ghostface or Jay-Z, any of these guys, that takes immense brain power, man. I mean, that's a lot of computational power to crunch code like that. So that's what I was trying to get to, like, because if you ever read like some of the hip hop quotables or some of the bars that these guys spit, it's hard to even digest it. That's why you have to listen to it multiple times. You're like, what is this? But for us as the audience, we have to interpret it a certain way. Say that again.
Mm-hmm. No, I was just saying you still catch shit years later when you listen to it.
Yeah. That's like Java, right? Just like C# or C++ or something like that. That code might have been written 30 years ago, but you can look through that code and still copy and paste it and it's still applicable to today.
Absolutely.
Lyrics are the same way. So I don't really like to go in on people who like to bash rappers and say, oh, these guys, they rap about bullshit. Well, Arnold Schwarzenegger shoots up 1,000 people in the movie and no one ever holds him accountable for killing all these people, right? But, they're allowed to do one thing and then everybody else is, for if they're Black, they're kind of held to a different standard. I don't really like to hold rappers to that sort of standard at all.
Yeah.
No, I think we were talking about some of the guys who kind of promote some level of ignorance, because quite frankly, when we really look at rap, and I remember it from its beginnings, literally in the mid 70s, and how a lot of it came out, it came from a kind of a revolutionary type of perspective, came from a real neighborhood perspective where people were kind of together, and it really spoke, it had a message. A lot of rap it had a strong message, man. It wasn't about twerking and some of the other ignorant shit that we've seen some of this stuff devolve into. Rap was very much a cutting edge, language on the cutting edge that really spoke to, I would say, youth and young people all around the world. And when I started to see people rapping like in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Kosovo, where war was going on, kids from literally from close to the neighborhood that I grew up in were literally drafting themselves. Some of these guys were Albanians and so forth, leaving and getting on buses and then going back to their countries that they came back with to fight. And then you heard these kids in these villages rapping. I was like, what the fuck? And here they are saying this shit in their language and they're rapping. They're rapping to like beats. And I'm sitting there saying, this is some revolutionary. I think they wanted to change this because I literally think this was a lexicon that was about to change the consciousness of many people in a certain direction, and they didn't want to go that way. I mean, for me, looking at it from its inception, from the earliest days, back in 1974, 1975, house parties and block parties, and guys were taking the new techniques, turntables, and using that in ways that these guys never thought that people could use it. So here were Black folks taking this technology and now using it in a different way and coming out with a whole musical lexicon that was absolutely creative and different. and few even give you credit for that. But so when I'm critical of some of this rap, I'm critical of some of the ways that it's devolved, because I saw this thing when most of you weren't even born, but this shit was starting to bang at just at around 75, 76, around there, where this shit started coming out over there in the Bronx, up near Cedric Avenue and so forth. And then then those parties started coming into Westchester County, into Mount Vernon and the Yonkers and these places, and you started to see what was going on. And that's what rap really was. It was very unique, musical and lyrical lexicon that was different and revolutionary. And it changed the game. It was this new rock and roll, change the game. Change it. So I give it the respect that it's due. But anyway, go ahead.
Let's go to Dr. Phoenix and then Art Musto, and then we'll go to Jay and close out.
Yeah, no, I just want to say my major issue with the whole rapper thing is that, yes, the lyrics can symbolize some form of intelligence and that can be put into code and stuff like that, but that's music in general.
Yeah.
I guess my take on it is simply that if you have the hearts and minds of young people, how does rap teach you how to do something like make a vaccine? How does it teach you how to build an oil foundry? How does it teach you how to extract oil? Better yet, how does it teach you how to extract water in places where water is very scarce, or at least access to ground sources of water are they're contaminated. And so I guess my fundamental question is, how does that teach you how to be an industrialist? How does that teach you to be a technocrat? Because that is my fundamental problem. If it just teaches you how to rhyme and roast somebody, I mean, that really doesn't help you in the 21st century.
Well, I can
I think
address that.
we put some of that in a rhyme. Put some of it in a rhyme and give those instructions in a rhyme. You'd be shocked where it could possibly go.
That's where I was going with it. That's where I was going with it. Go ahead, Art Musto.
Yeah. To address that slightly, you got to remember that's entertainment. I mean, you can say that, you can ask that question to actors, you can ask that question to musicians, all these different people. These are people that would require someone to have that kind of mindset to help them sell their product. Because a lot of artists, even myself, we're horrible at marketing. We need somebody to help marketing so we can concentrate on what we do best. So everything is not intellectualized or computated based on, what other people feel as that you should be looking towards your, whatever goals or whatever. You always need like a someone that's supposed to block for you while you're doing your thing, because when you're distracted and you have to worry about all those things, then you really can't create. That's probably why Sly Stone was one of the biggest dudes on drugs, because he had too many things to worry about. Not to justify drugs, but you want to be able to clear the mind of the artist so they can create. And the other part too was I don't know if people realize, and it took me a while to understand after hearing a few interviews. A lot of the East Coast rappers, a lot of this stuff had jazz elements.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff, a hip, a hop, the hip, the hippity, hip. That's jazz. I mean, if you listen to Eric B. What's his name, Rakim, he was a trumpet player.
Well, if you listen to like production teams like the Beat Miners, you listen to production teams like the Beat Nuts. You listen a lot of what they call true school era, like where crate. This is the era I came up in. Like I came up in music in crate digging. I was a vinyl dealer. That's how I got into the game. So it was about crate digging, finding those rare jazz gems, understanding and knowing the record industry basically, at the time, which labels were pushing what labels were established where. That gave you an idea of what was coming out regionally, right? Because a label that was sourced in, say, St. Louis, for example, has St. Louis artists. And then when you start to dig into the label's catalog, you start to see the progression of the sounds that came out, through that time, the label and what it was bringing forth from that area. That's a lot of that data that I acquired, I put into my label. you know, that that I ran with a good friend of mine for 8 years, you know, and I got the majority of my catalog actually on my channel, you know. But
you guys remember Cowboy from a
Cowboy,
Grandmaster
yeah.
Flash?
Yep.
He was a scatter. People don't understand he was scatting. If you listen to Grand Poobah, if you listen to definitely Fife Dog, I mean, all these people really had the way that they rap. It sounded like they were playing a jazz instrument.
Well, Art, you're from LA, right?
Yes, I'm from out here.
Art,
you know what? You know what complex? I used to work with Dobbs, Wino Dobbs, Brian Dobbs out in Carson.
Brian Dobbs.
He did Gangsta's Paradise for Coolio.
Okay. Now, are you familiar with the whole Lamert Park Project Blowed scene?
No, but I used to do Good Life a lot. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay, Good Life. Good Life was actually, so when I got into the scene, it was right around the time I was like maybe 16. And so this was right before Good Life became Project Blowed. Project Blow came out of Good Life. So remember, okay, so you go back to back to the Good Life Cafe.
Yeah, Rodeo,
like,
yeah.
Yeah,
Rodeo.
where like cats like
Freestyle Fellowship.
Okay, Freestyle Fellowship. So those dudes.
Topic, then.
Okay, I know we're getting off topic, bro, but
sorry about that.
No, I know, but that's the staccato jazz shit. Freestyle Fellowship, Good Life Cafe, all that shit.
Yeah. So we you know, like I said, we, you know, what I'm trying to say though was that we misunderestimate the origins on how that stuff became when it was very relevant. You know, it wasn't like what we're listening to today. It was more to where people were actually feeling like I think you were mentioning the algorithms. I mean, it was in your body. And then later on, once everything was opening up, then you start receiving the messages.
Yeah.
You know.
I
don't know about now though.
Yeah, the thing is, let me just finish this real quick, Dr. Finks, 5 seconds.
Oh no, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, because the guy I had mentioned before, I used to work with at a big financial institution. He graduated Berkeley College of Music with his degree in music, but he was immensely talented in IT. And his background had nothing to do with technology, but the way he thought from a music composition standpoint, he understood code. That translated into code development. So I'm just saying that the rappers back then who could spit bars like that, who got hip hop quotables and stuff like that. If you look at the lyrics, and look at the structure and the algorithm and the pattern, it's very one for one what coding is. Go ahead, Dr. Finks. Then we need to go to Jay.
And while I agree with what you just said, my fundamental problem here is still that you're talking about, I think because you brothers are a little older than me, but you guys are talking about a generation that's at least completely removed from what's happening now. I'm talking to someone who lives an experience where I have to constantly see that Black children have no interest in a lot of these things that gets discussed on this platform. And even if they do, it is certainly discouraged. And the motivation and the drive to be in these fields is yanked out of them. And it gets replaced by very rudimentary careers, to be exact. Either you go try to go do the typical things, run, throw, catch, jump, catch a ball, whatever, or you try to rap. And again, the brothers that you all are talking about brothers that are damn near old enough to be my father. You guys are not talking about brothers who would be technically my peers. If this was true of rappers, I can say in my age group or younger, then yeah, I can understand it. But you guys are talking about a whole generation completely removed from what's happening now. And so my fundamental question still remains: how does the current environment with rap truly influence what happens to Black children and just Black people in general? Because what I see is that you have a whole generation of Black kids that are plugged into YouTube and into social media, and they're about as dumb as bricks.
I hear you, brother. Let's go to Jay Quest. I'm sorry, Jay.
Hey, how's it going, guys? 2 quick points. I think this music thing you're discussing, I'm not the biggest fan of hip hop, but I think is a great example of what Pan-Africanism can do. Because in the 60s, Black Americans created rhythm and blues.
Mm-hmm.
The Jamaicans heard it. If you listen to old reggae, like the Wailers, they were doing covers of R&B songs.
Mm-hmm.
Then they put their own twist on it, created reggae. The Panamanians, Black Panamanians, took the reggae, called it reggae en español, that turned into reggaeton.
Mm-hmm.
Jamaicans continued down the path to dancehall. Somehow they landed in New York and London, that turned into hip hop and like drum and bass jungle. And now the Africans heard it and they created Afrobeat, which I think will be superior to hip hop and dancehall because they have complete independence. I don't know if you listen to Afrobeat, but Burna Boy's new album, he has some very like Pan-Africanist themes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and he's the biggest like Afrobeat artist right now in the world. Like, what rapper is on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And second point, yeah, we definitely do need to. We have entertainment locked as Black people, which is good. We have to keep it that way, but we also have to diversify because this entertainment thing does open a lot of doors. I travel a lot, and when they hear Jamaica,
mm-hmm.
you get free stuff immediately. Guys are like, oh, you know, back in the Revolution, I was listening to Bob Marley, this and that. Like, no kidding. I was in Morocco one time in some village. I wanted to meet authentic Berber people. We went to this place called the Eureka Valley. And I was walking around some neighborhood and a guy saw me. He's like, yo, I was with my father there. He's like, where are you from? So I come from Jamaica. He's like, oh my God, come to my house. He told his wife to make dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Then he brings out his daughters. He's like, yo, these are my daughters. He's like, then he gives me a lecture about how it's okay for Black people to marry like Berber women and this and that. I was like, whoa.
Purple women?
Berber.
Oh, Berber. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the music is a form of Pan-Africanism. It's allowed a lot of people to eat all over the diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of shows what we can achieve when we work together.
Yeah. There was an industrialization behind it. Yeah, that is a good point. There was industrialization behind that.
And I'll go even further. I'll say like, I think the issue with hip hop is that it's controlled by the greater society.
Right.
I don't know if like the hottest dancehall artist right now is Popcorn. That dude doesn't even have a US visa. They won't give him a visa to tour. He's cool. He just goes to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
He sings about whatever he wants. They cancel his visa. He's like, so what? So yeah, you can't expect too much from hip hop when it's controlled like this.
Yeah, because I just want to make this point, then we'll close out. Ashanti, I was watching an interview with Ashanti, and she was talking about, she's an R&B artist, but she was saying that, in order to put something out, they wanted her to basically strip, and she was like, hell no. I heard the same thing from, Reed Dollars in Philly and a couple other rappers that, he was, kind of spitting some pro-Black stuff, and the label was like, no, we don't want that. We want you to snap your fingers and do a little dance or something like that. And it was like, he was like, nah. That's why you don't really hear from some of these artists, because the labels don't want you coming out, man, unless you're doing what they want you to do. And so they've been doing that for quite some time. I'm not saying that as an excuse. I'm saying a lot of the content that's being put out is strategic, not by the artist, but by the by the label.
You're saying it's by the industry. Yeah,
like
I said, when rap music was first really out there and it was really kind of a revolutionary musical lexicon, that shit got changed. They changed that. They didn't want that because they realized that you can mobilize behind this kind of stuff. And they wanted to move that to shake the booty and and kind of move it into gangster rap, and then change it to something else even more fucked up, to where it has really no real relevance to you. And here you have this craziness out here. So that's the industry.
Do you guys remember Hollywood Shuffle when they had Black acting school?
Yeah.
It's the same shit for hip hop, man. Same stuff. They show you how to act Black, show you how to walk, show you how to act thuggish, and these are, white cats, or, these are people that are telling you, You know, act the way you do. Act, you know how you do it. Just do the way you guys do it. That kind of thing. I mean,
Key and Peele has a skit where they're shooting a film, and it's like two street cats making a drug deal. And what they did was they casted one dude from Brooklyn. He was actually a drug dealer. That was Peele. And Key was actually a British actor. And so like they kept shooting the scene, and then the director would be like, cut. And like the nigga from Brooklyn wasn't authentic enough. And so the director kept going to the British guy, like, can you get him to really get this right? And the dude from Brooklyn's like, yo, I'm an actual drug dealer, yo. Like, what the fuck? So yeah. It was a funny ass skit, bro. Like, you look that one up.
I'm gonna check it out. I think I saw it. I think so. But that's what's going on, man. And nobody's saying. Well, I ain't saying nobody, but not enough people are saying anything about it. They just think that everything that's on these waves are authentic, and such and such got put on, and such and such got a bullet. And I'm like, come on, man. I talked to people about Chris. What's his name? Chris. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna
say.
Well,
I'm gonna say this.
We got Lonzo Williams on the panel. Peace, brother. Thank you for joining the panel.
Oh, peace.
I just want to say this real quick. Is Wayne Brady gonna have to slap a bitch?
Wayne Brady.
You can unmute yourself, Lonzo. You can unmute your mic.
Yeah, Lonzo, we were talking about how they do lyrics compared to now and back then, and the difference of how that's being taken by. Well, you guys can just explain if y'all want.
Well, they basically, we were just talking about it from an algorithmic programming and code standpoint. Like you've largely number one, you've reduced the quality of code, and then number two, what you did was you also reduced the complexity by going from a 16 bar to an 8 bar. It's like going from 16-bit to 8-bit. So when you look at it from a programming or coding or algorithmic standpoint, you can better assess the effects of degrading music vis-a-vis looking at what happens when you code based on a certain type of construct. If you can make the correlation there, it becomes very simple to see how you could reduce the output essentially. When we look at it more from an algorithmic standpoint. So that was the whole sort of deep dive discussion that we had some time back. So we were just kind of revisiting it a little bit.
Yeah, Lonzo, you can unmute your mic if you want to talk. Because outside of that, we're going to actually close out. But we would definitely like to have you back for our hip hop as a science week, which is something we haven't done in a while.
Yeah, we got to schedule one of those. Hey, Johnny Blaze has his hand up real quick. Mike, you gonna fire up the micro transport after this?
Yeah. Go ahead, Johnny Blaze.
Hey, I was gonna say, man, on the hip hop thing, man, there's a guy on YouTube. Check him out. His name is Crank Lucas. He does like parody videos. He is funny and he's talented, and you will see the whole evolution of hip hop.
Yep.
I think Lonzo had his. I think his mic was on mute. I think he was trying to get in.
Yeah, I saw it off mute, but I don't know what he.
Yeah, because I see him. To speak. Maybe he's trying to say something.
Lonzo, can you hear us?
See, I think he can hear us, but we can't hear him.
Yeah, I don't see nothing green.
Hey guys, it's Ernest. I'm gonna roll out. I enjoyed
it. Hey, Ernest, thanks for stopping through, man. Have a good one,
brother. Man, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah.
Oh, there he goes. What happened?
No, I think he can hear us, but I don't know. His mic's not coming through. We can't hear him.
Yeah.
But he did something and it went green. So he was doing something.
That's what I'm saying. He's popping up on there, but we can't hear him.
Jeez. I tried, fellas.
No, man. We'll definitely be back, man.
Yeah, because we'll have to talk like definitely talk like LA hip hop, because there's probably a bunch of people that y'all know that I know.
Oh, definitely, man. I used to work for Ice-T at United Nations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I used to draw faces in there.
Oh, okay. During what time? What era?
90.
90.
Yeah.
So you knew like Scheme Team and all the cats that he ran with back in the day, right?
Well, I remember Africa Islam, and yeah,
Did you
because
know?
he was the one.
Did you know Bilal Bashir?
No, I never met it. I remember Queen Gloria. So Queen Gloria was the one that got him to hire me. Her name was Queen Gloria, and there was and then Africa Islam was the one that got me to do things around there besides drawing. I was an artist / like errand guy.
Okay. Like I said, we'll have to talk about it, man, because I bet you a bunch of names are gonna come up in conversation, man.
Yeah, probably if I see their faces too, I think that'll really help. Because I was anyhow, we sidetracked again. Sorry about that.
No, we good. All right, Mike.
Yeah, let's just close out, man. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you to everyone who joined the panel and contributed. Definitely much appreciated. If you're trying to get into IT for the first time, we do offer IT mentorship. If you're going from IT role to another, we do offer IT coaching. If you have questions about cover letters, resumes, and wages and salaries, we do offer advice in that area as well. If you are in the tri-state area and you are looking for IT contracts, and Golden 11 does have recs on the table, so get in touch with us. To everyone else, peace and shalom.
Peace.
They gotta stop lying to the kids, man. Feeding them that signal bullshit. You know what I mean? Regurgitated crap. It's the meaning behind the sacred symbols. The goal behind the patience that makes it simple. For me to be the creator, I had to stay consistent. Knew that it would be greater later and stay persistent. When your moves about millions, you gotta run a maze. So get the hint, no disturbances when I'm running plays. Needs and wants the strongest traits of the human nature. Disconnections from it all, some say it's elevation. But fuck that, we getting rich for my peoples who was crucified, tortured, and lynched. I'm a product of kings and queens and gods and earths and slaves anonymous. Freedom or death is what we used to shout. So while we still throwing parties inside a burning house, the devil's still trying to turn us out. History repeats what you refuse to learn about. Accept your own and do for self. This life is all about health and wealth. My 12 jewels keep me focusing, yeah. I'm on my square. Acknowledge God that's seen and heard everywhere. Accept your own and do for self. This life is all about health and wealth. My 12 jewels keep me focusing, yeah. I'm on my square. Acknowledge God that's seen and heard everywhere. I probably move to Ghana, get into politics to restore the motherland and legalize marijuana. 1 for the ancestors, 2 for the rituals. The reincarnated energy from the spiritual crossroads that seems near me. My thoughts travel like string theory, which allows me to do my thing yearly. Unorthodox artist when I started was hella critics. I went from pimping and macking to using metaphysics. I'm on some Dr. Deborah Blair shit, dropping heavy. Science, word up, I even blew trees with Dr. Sebi. And that was around the same time I was copping heavy. Couple homies fell victim that was not respected. I'm still a factor in my section, studying lessons from the essence. The wisdom is the most precious. Sajad Allahu to the ones who know the hidden face that came from the west with new wine and golden scrolls. Accept your own and do for self. This life is all about health and wealth. My 12 jewels keep me focusing, yeah. I'm on my square. Acknowledge God that's seen and heard everywhere. Accept your own and do for self. This life is all about health and wealth. My 12 jewels keep me focusing, yeah. I'm on my square. Acknowledge God that's seen and heard everywhere.